Chapter 1807. This thought only lasted for an instant. At the same time, many bolts of red lightning appeared in the sky like bamboo shoots after a rain, falling down like raindrops. The cultivator was exposed to the red lightning, as if he was naked. Once the red lightning appeared, it was different from the previous lightning tribulations. It completely suppressed the restriction formed by the heavenly tribulation, as if the entire sky was pressing down on the cultivator's body. The cultivator's magic power was completely frozen, and he couldn't use it at all. The cultivator's expression changed greatly, and he complained in his heart, "This is really the demonic beast's holy lightning tribulation." Although the lightning tribulations look different, the demonic beast's first heavenly tribulation is to test the body, so all magic power can't be used. Damn it, I'm a human cultivator, not a demonic beast. How can I withstand being directly hit by lightning? Moreover, this lightning is the holy lightning tribulation for demonic beasts? So bitter. While the cultivator was complaining, he secretly hoped that the protective spiritual treasure outside his body would be useful and help him pass through the holy lightning tribulation that he had never prepared for before. Rumble. The red lightning struck the golden brick, causing it to flash with an intense golden light. Immediately after, it burst open. The golden chi contained within the golden brick immediately dissipated, causing the weight of the entire space to increase tremendously in an instant. The nascent soul outside the cultivator's body saw that the situation wasn't good and immediately wanted to enter the cultivator's body. However, the place where he could come and go freely was now like a rock. No matter what, he couldn't enter it. For a moment, the nascent soul of the transcending tribulation cultivator anxiously cried out. The transcending tribulation cultivator's face also turned ashen. He knew very well what the consequences would be if a transcending tribulation cultivator's nascent soul were to directly face the thunder tribulation. He regretted releasing his nascent soul according to the experience of transcending tribulation cultivators. Ooh, the nascent soul panicked and wanted to spit something out from its mouth. However, before it could spit it out, there was another paw sound. Several red lightning bolts struck the nascent soul first. The exquisite spiritual armor on the nascent soul's body instantly emitted an extremely brilliant 5 colors. However, the brilliance didn't last long before it was destroyed by the red lightning. Immediately, the spiritual armor was cut off from the nascent soul's body. The naked nascent soul quickly made a spell and wanted to escape in another direction. However, it had just flown half a foot in the air when it was hit by another red lightning bolt. With a heart-wrenching scream, the red lightning bolt lingered around the nascent soul and tore it into countless small pieces. Under the lightning, these small pieces turned into extremely pure heaven-earth spiritual chi and immediately disappeared. Compared to a nascent soul cultivator, a tribulation-passing cultivator's body was even more miserable. Dozens of bolts of red lightning that were supposed to strike the powerful body of a demonic beast landed on his body, which had never been tempered before. The spirit armor only lasted for a few breaths of time before it was destroyed. Along with the destruction of the spirit armor, the tribulation-passing cultivator's weak body was also destroyed. By the time the cultivator's soul had dissipated, the lightning that was wreaking havoc in the sky began to gradually disappear. The dense dark clouds in the sky also began to slowly recede. The restrictions that were enveloped by the heavenly tribulation also began to disappear bit by bit. Only the high altar and the 81 spirit banners on it were completely undamaged. This was no wonder. The heavenly tribulation had just begun and didn't even show its ferocious face before it ended. The demon-subduing star formation naturally didn't withstand the baptism of the heavenly tribulation. Okay, everyone, don't blame the heavenly tribulation for not being grand enough. The reason has already been explained. Inside the magnificent sect, there was a mountain surrounded by white clouds. There were huge palaces all over the mountain, and there were many rare beasts leisurely scattered around the palaces. Within the palace, there were 2 cultivators sitting opposite each other in a luxurious side hall. The The younger cultivator was Sun Yunzi, the sect master of the magnificent flower sect. Sitting opposite him was a rather old man. The old man's hair and beard were all white, and he looked very miserable. He was far from the immortal-like cultivator that people imagined him to be. This person was the magnificent sect's elder, Black Flame. He was at the early stage of the spirit-severing stage. Sun Yunzi respectfully asked, "Elder Black Flame, the magnificent sect has been developing like this for the past few decades. Junior didn't dare to disturb you when you went into closed-door cultivation to break through to the mid-stage of the spirit-severing stage. What do you think about the sect's development?" Taoist Black Flame opened his eyes slightly and glanced at Sun Yunzi. After a long while, he said slowly, "This Taoist is old and has long since stopped caring about the affairs of the sect. How do you expect this old man to answer your questions? The heavy burden of the Shanghua sect has been placed on this junior's shoulders. This junior has racked his brains and dared not slack off. But this junior knows very well that the reason why our Shanghua sect can stand firm in the country of Shi and even the Dawn Rain continent is because of powerful cultivators like Senior. If not for Senior and other elders, any spirit-severing cultivator who found the Golden Palace would be a disaster for our Shanghua sect. Yes, this is only one of the reasons, and it's not the most important reason." Black Flame said, "I think the most important thing is the younger generation. If these disciples have unlimited potential, who would dare to cause trouble for my magnificent sect? Who can guarantee that there won't be a few spirit-severing stage cultivators?" "That's right. Senior's words are correct." Sun Yunzi respectfully said, "Junior didn't think about this before." Taoist Black Flame smiled, and the wrinkles on his face slightly trembled. He stretched out his withered tree-like hand and waved it, saying, "Sun Yunzi, if you have something to say, then say it quickly. You've always been a strange and clever brat since you were young. You always hide everything from me, so how could I not know what you're thinking?" "Hee." Sun Yunzi dryly laughed and said, "Senior is truly perceptive. Junior does have something to ask. Go ahead." "Senior, in the past 10 years, Junior and my fellow disciples have discovered that the world's spirit energy has changed." Sun Yunzi stole a glance at Black Flame, but there was no expression on Black Flame's face. He continued, "If it was a simple change in the world's spirit energy, Junior wouldn't be worried. After all, the world's changes aren't something us cultivators can interfere with. But recently, in the past 5 or 6 years, there has been a huge problem with the disciples my magnificent sect has recruited. Junior has no choice but to ask Senior for an answer." "HM, what's the problem?" Black Flame's eyes widened, and he said, "I've long known about the change in the world's spirit energy. Moreover, it's not as simple as you think. Ever since I felt the change in the world's spirit energy, my cultivation began to slow down. Although the speed of the decrease isn't great, it's still fatal for a cultivator like me who doesn't have much time left. This old man originally thought that with your low cultivation, you might not be able to detect it. Who would have thought that you already knew? As for the Qi refining disciples, they aren't true cultivators, so they shouldn't be affected, right?" "Senior, you're too optimistic," Sun Yunzi said with a serious expression. "The Qi refining disciples seem to be affected more than us." Then, Sun Yunzi explained how Qi refining disciples were divided into 2 extremes. He said, gloomily, "In the current Dawn Rain continent, the cultivation families rely on us. Every family takes pride in sending their disciples to our sections. Now that these disciples' cultivations have increased by leaps and bounds, their extremely thin, true spirit bloodlines have awakened, the situation will definitely change. This will definitely change the current cultivation structure of the Dawn Rain continent. I'm afraid that the cultivation aristocratic families will surpass our cultivation sects sooner or later." "Yes, Sectmaster is right." Black Flame thought for a moment and nodded. "However, our cultivation sects are so powerful that the cultivation families can't compare to them. The situation between sects and families is still different. Junior understands. However, If we don't find a reason why our disciples can't cultivate, it's only a matter of time before a Shanghua sect becomes decadent. The revival of the cultivation sects is also a matter of time. Sun Yunzi said worriedly. Yes, that's right. Black Flame nodded. Have we reported this to the Immortal Alliance? Sun Yunzi shook his head. Not yet. After all, this concerns the prosperity of the sect. Junior doesn't dare to act on his own. If only my Shanghua sect is facing this problem and the other sects aren't, where will my Shanghua sect go? The other sects? I'm afraid their defenses are also very tight. Right? That's right. We don't have any concrete information. Everything is just groundless speculation. After a while, Black Flame asked, among the disciples who aren't from the cultivation families, are there any who can cultivate quickly? There aren't any, not a single one. Sun Yunzi answered without hesitation. Yes. Black Flame slowly nodded and said, although I can't determine the crux of the matter, I'm afraid it has something to do with the change in the world's spirit energy. However, my cultivation is still low. If I can get some guidance from a tribulation passing senior, I might be able to determine something. Sun Yunzi's face was filled with helplessness. Of course, Sect Master should consider this from another angle. Since the disciples of the cultivation families can cultivate according to our Shanghua sect's cultivation method. Black Flame's expression suddenly changed. No, after the disciples of the cultivation families enter our Shanghua sect, most of them still cultivate their own cultivation methods, right? That's right. Sun Yunzi bitterly smiled. If their families have a cultivation method that leads to foundation establishment, our sect won't let them cultivate our sect's cultivation method. Then what about the disciples of the cultivation families who don't have a cultivation method that leads to foundation establishment? Sun Yunzi seemed to have thought of something, and a thoughtful expression appeared on his face. These disciples aren't slow either. Oh, that's good. Black Flame's expression relaxed, and he smiled. This means that our Shanghua sect cultivation method can still be cultivated under the change in the world's spirit energy. There's no need for us cultivation sects to unite. That's right. Sun Yunzi's face revealed a trace of malevolence, and he sneered. Junior wants to send out an order to gather the Seven Skills sect, Xuanyin School, and even the Huanhua sect and Imperial Thunder sect to discuss, exterminate the cultivation families. Chapter 1808. Sun Yunzi snorted coldly and said, although this is very difficult, the cultivation families and cultivation sects are already inextricably linked. However, for the sake of the survival of the cultivation sects, I'm afraid that these cultivation sects will agree to my Shanghuazong suggestion. Black Flame's words were as Sun Yunzi had expected. Luckily, since my Shanghua sect cultivation method can still be used, it means that the method of recruiting disciples needs to be improved. As long as I choose the right disciples, my sect will be able to maintain its prosperity. Sun Yunzi came to a sudden realization and said, Senior Black Flame is indeed wise. You've enlightened me all of a sudden. I'm already old. No need to praise me anymore. Black Flame smiled. I don't believe that you haven't thought of this. You only came to me to ask for confirmation. Sun Yunzi didn't refute. Since the cultivation method can still be used and the normal disciples can also cultivate, why don't we increase our recruitment efforts? Every year, we recruit more disciples from cultivation families. Also, when they start refining Qi, they will have their life spirit tablets. This way, they won't have a chance to rebel against our cultivation sect. As for the normal disciples, we also need to recruit more and see if there are any disciples who can cultivate as fast as the disciples from cultivation families. Find out what's different about these disciples. Black Flame slowly said, if we use these differences as the criteria for recruiting disciples, our Shanghua sect won't have to worry about not being able to flourish under the change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Sage's suggestion is indeed wise. Sun Yunzi praised, but I'm afraid this process might take 10 years or even 100 years. 10 years? 100 years? Black Flame sneered. Within 1,000 years, within the lifespan of her nascent soul, You'll be the hero of our Shanghua sect." Then he mercilessly said, "Even if you reach the spirit-severing stage, if you can find it within a few thousand years, I'll still be smiling in the underworld." Sun Yunzi wasn't angry at all and smiled. Junior knows that this is too much of a first and is probably the biggest challenge after the ancient era, so I came to ask for advice from the elder. This is the key to the survival of our Shanghua sect, so the elder can't just stand by and watch. I finally know what you're planning." Black Flame Sage clapped his hands and took out a jade slip. He handed it over to Sun Yunzi and said, "This is something I recently comprehended. It's a method for ordinary disciples to forge a life spirit tablet. Take it." Sun Yunzi was overjoyed. He smiled and said, "Junior knew that spiritual master must have a miraculous prescription that I couldn't imagine." It was indeed so. "Sai, you can go now. Although this method is useful, it has many flaws. I hope you can make good use of it." Black Flame seemed to be somewhat tired as he waved his hand and said. Sun Yunzi immediately stood up and bowed. Junior will take his leave now. I dare not disturb Daoist cultivation. After Sun Yunzi left, Daoist Black Flame closed his eyes for a while before raising his head to look at the sky outside the side hall. The white clouds in the sky were still there, and the blue sky hadn't changed at all. Alas, the world has changed. Under the heavenly Tao, who can escape? Heaven and earth are heartless, treating all living things as straw dogs. These words are not deceiving. What a pity, what a pity. I'm afraid I won't be able to see the secrets of the heavenly Tao for the rest of my life. Black Flame stood there for more than half a day before he flew into the air, transforming into a streak of light as he flew southwest, disappearing into the horizon in the blink of an eye. Xiao Huan naturally didn't know that so many things had happened on the Rain continent. Of course, even if he knew, with his cultivation as a chi refinement cultivator, he wouldn't have the chance to express his opinion. All he could do now was cultivate in peace. Soon a year had passed. After Xiao Hua handed over another bag of Xiao Yin grass, the last fire essence flame crystal in his meridians had been completely refined. It was time to use the last fire essence flame crystal to charge into the 18th layer of Qi refinement. As for Xiao Hua, he clapped his hands and took out a pair of soul-sucking bells from his space. They floated quietly in the air. Xiao Hua didn't do anything, and he didn't even release his divine sense. The soul-sucking bells were swaying strangely. Although the clear ringing wasn't very loud, it filled the entire cave. Looking at Xiao Hua's eyes again, a faint black light flashed through his eyes. A few strands of black light, invisible to the naked eye and only detectable by divine sense, were slowly spreading out from between his eyebrows. They circled around the soul-sucking bells and vibrated with a strange rhythm. It's really strange. A satisfied smile emerged on Xiao Hua's face as he thought to himself, although I can't directly practice this incantation of Chung Clan, but after practicing some simple soul cultivation techniques, I can control this soul-absorbing bell. Obviously, this soul-absorbing bell of Chung Clan was passed down from millions of Meng Mountains. A soul cultivation technique? It should be a soul technique. If it's so powerful, then what about the soul cultivators in the Million Mountains? No wonder, even though the Tao sect and sword cultivators are so powerful, they don't dare to enter the Million Mountains, and the Tao sect in the Million Mountains doesn't dare to come here either. The Tao sect cultivates the lower Danton, the Buddhist sect cultivates the Sarira, and the sword cultivators cultivate the natal sword origin. They can all be seen, but where is the soul cultivator's 3 souls and 6 spirits? Although I have a rough understanding of the 9 heavens of spirit origin, I still don't know where the soul is. Xiao Hua frowned again and said, "Why don't I take a look with my delusion breaker Dharma eyes?" Just as he was thinking, Xiao Hua's eyebrows twitched. He sensed that the array formation outside the eastern ridge herb garden was stirring. Xiao Hua took out his token and formed a hand seal, releasing the array formation. 2 scarlet transmission talismans flew in at the same time. When Xiao Hua crushed the messaging talismans, Sun Shu's and Qian Dihing's voices came from them. They were the same message. They had just finished building their foundation, and they sent messaging talismans to inform Xiao Hua first. Sun Shu's messaging talisman was nothing special. He couldn't hide his joy and gratitude. Xiao Hua, I have finally built my foundation. Moreover, before I build my foundation, I have already started practicing the hibernating thunder escape. If nothing unexpected happens, I will be able to complete it when I build my foundation. Master was right. This Zhongyao milk is indeed a shortcut to cultivating the lightning escape. Thinking back to that day, when I sent you an invitation at the Feather Immortal Assembly, I really didn't expect that I would have such a day. I don't know what to say to you. I have already said a simple thank you countless times. I don't want to say it again in this lifetime. I really want to, but after saying want to a few times, Sun Shu didn't finish his sentence. Xiao Hua let out a long sigh. He felt very upset. Just as he was about to throw the messaging talisman away, Sun Shu said again. Chapter 1809. By the way, Xiao Hua, after the disciples of my Imperial Thunder Sect reach the Foundation Establishment stage, there will be a simple celebration. Master has set the date to be 10 days later. At that time, my master's martial uncles and martial ancestors who are on good terms with my master will bring their disciples over. On one hand, they will congratulate him, and on the other hand, they will talk about cultivation after reaching the Foundation Establishment stage. Will you come? And if you come, remember to send me a messaging talisman. I will go with junior sister Shui to the Sun Lei Palace to pick you up. Qian Diheng's messaging talisman was much more exaggerated. Qian Diheng laughed and said, Junior brother Xiao, damn it, I finally reached Foundation Establishment. After I send you a messaging talisman, I will immediately send one to Wang Yunxiao, Yuanbua, and Min Ge. Damn it, you actually dare to act like a senior in front of me, right? I originally wanted to go to the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden personally. Needless to say, I was able to reach Foundation Establishment all because of Junior Brother's contribution. If I don't thank you, who should I thank? However, I didn't receive your message and know that you haven't reached Foundation Establishment yet. What if I go? Do you have any thoughts in your heart? Therefore, it's better for me not to go. And 10 days later, there will be a small celebration in my Heavenly Thunder Palace. Damn it, it's to congratulate me for truly stepping into cultivation. If you want to come, then come. If you don't feel good, then don't come. In any case, I will use the hibernating thunder escape at that time and let Wang Yunxiao and those dogs see who is the real Imperial Thunder Sect Foundation establishment disciple. Cool. Junior brother Xiao, you should also hurry up and cultivate. TSK. I won't say anymore. If I say more, it will only make you unhappy. Right? The magic treasures in the storage bag were left by me. Consider it a gift for you. If other masters find out, just say it was from me. And one last thing, don't worry, cultivate well. Even if you can't reach Foundation Establishment, you are still my junior brother. As long as I am in the Imperial Thunder Sect, I will definitely not let anyone bully you. I will definitely think of a way to let you and Shui have a good relationship. This is my promise to you. Damn it. Xiao Hua's heart was filled with warmth. He scolded jokingly. You are just an early-stage Foundation establishment, yet you dare to call yourself senior brother in front of me. When I have time, I will deal with this guy. Foundation establishment, middle-stage Foundation establishment cultivators were dealt with by me. As he spoke, he took out the other 2 message amulets and said the same thing. With a wave of his hand, the message amulets flew to different places. Xiao Hua himself had yet to build his foundation, so why would he attend someone else's foundation building celebration for no reason? Moreover, he had no use for other people's foundation establishment experience. If he went, he would only become a laughingstock. Even if he didn't care, what about Sun Shu or Qian Dian? There was no need for him to make things difficult for them. Sigh, I wonder if I'll be able to find a sliver of memory when I reach the 18th layer of Qi refining. Xiao Hua was somewhat perplexed. He stopped cultivating and slowly walked out of the abode. At this time, it was broad daylight and the Eastern Ridge Her Garden was scorching hot. Standing on the mountain ridge, Xiao Hua stared at the clear sky for a long time. After searching for so many years, I still haven't found any clues of my origins. I've tried all kinds of methods, but other than the occasional cultivation technique, I've found nothing. I hope that the painstaking effort I put into cultivating the 18th layer of aura refining can be seen by the heavens. When I reach the peak of the 18th layer of aura refining, the heavens will give me some clues about my origins. Oh heavens, I don't need too much. Just a sliver will be enough. Could the heavens hear Xiao Hua's wishes? No one knew that there were only white clouds in the sky, hot air on the ground, and Xiao Hua, who was bitterly searching for his origins on the eastern ridge, after sighing with emotion for a moment. Xiao Hua's gaze turned resolute. He swept his eyes all around and said with a smile, "Since I'm here, I'll take things as they come. This young master isn't talented. If I can't reach the 18th layer of aura refining, then I'll reach foundation establishment. If I can't reach foundation establishment, then I'll reach core formation. This young master doesn't believe that if I cultivate to transcend tribulation and reach the great ascension stage, this young master still won't be able to find my origins." Unfortunately, this was only Xiao Hua's wishful thinking. In his heart, the great ascension stage was already the end of cultivation. He was already an almighty figure. However, he didn't know that his memories. How could a tribulation transcending cultivator guess the light reversal in his space? How could a great ascension stage cultivator control it? With a goal in mind, Xiao Hua was once again filled with confidence. He clapped his hands and took out the last piece of fire essence flame crystal from his space. The small piece that was scorching hot and contained an extremely large amount of fire attribute spiritual chi of heaven and earth immediately gathered and absorbed the surrounding fire attribute spiritual chi. Xiao Hua's figure floated up and flew into the cave. At the same time, the rabbit formation and the fire formation were also activated. Under the eastern ridge, a fist-sized chunk of lava was formed. The lava was divided into several layers. The outermost layer was magma that was like water. As it went further in, it gradually hardened and turned into crystals. Further in, it was empty. In this empty space, there was a trace of a pitch-black collapse. It was the kind of collapse that was so hot that it almost burned the space. Following the appearance of the fire essence flame crystal, the pitch-black collapse began to move again. It was like a wriggling worm that began to slowly rise. The rise was unstoppable. It easily passed through the crystals and the hardened parts in the middle. When it passed through the magma that was like water, the magma actually evaporated like water. When Xiao Hua sat down cross-legged and slapped the fire essence flame crystal into his arm, intense flames once again rose from his body. The speed at which the pitch-black collapsed and floated up increased once again. It was like a young swallow's desire to return to its nest. Now that he had already used the fourth fire essence flame crystal, Xiao Hua was already familiar with it. As his body was being torn apart by the blazing flames, the intense pain on his body still made Xiao Hua release the phoenix celestial body regardless of everything. Although he couldn't use the great strength Vajra celestial body at this time, the virtual dots that formed the phoenix celestial body were the same as the small dots that formed Xiao Hua's body. They were both absorbing the flames of the fire essence flame crystal. At the same time, Xiao Hua's bones once again became a mixture of crimson and pure white. 80% of them had already been entangled by the red threads. Now, under the burning of the flames, they slowly extended and advanced towards 100%. However, when they neared 100%, the red threads no longer extended. Even though the flames around Xiao Hua's body were still there was still an extremely large amount that hadn't been absorbed. The red threads also stopped moving. In other words, when Xiao Hua used the fire essence flame crystal to temper his bones, he could only temper them to 99%. There was still a little bit that he couldn't use the fire essence flame crystal to complete the refinement. At this time, Xiao Hua didn't have any extra thoughts to consider. After the dragon transformation art also absorbed the flames, he circulated the prairie fire cultivation method and did his best to absorb the excess flames. The pitch-black collapse under the eastern ridge continued to rise. After nearly 30 days, it finally arrived at the edge of the formation that enveloped the entire eastern ridge. As expected, that formation was basically like nothingness. The pitch-black collapse flashed past and moved towards the flames where Xiaohua was. At the same time that the formation was crossed, in a large hall in the Heavenly Thunder Palace, there was a lecture. A mid-gold core stage cultivator sat high up on a cloud platform in the hall. His eyes were slightly closed as he spoke about the true meaning of cultivation. Below the cloud platform, more than 10 peak late foundation establishment stage cultivators sat in a circle. Each and every one of them had their eyes wide open as they stared unblinkingly at the gold core stage cultivator's face. Their ears were perked up as if they didn't dare to miss a single word. Today's lecture was about the experience of condensing one's core. It was something that these peak foundation establishment stage cultivators had been longing for a long time. If they were fated, perhaps one of the senses would be able to move them, and they might be able to build their foundation on the spot. But right at this time, the body of a cultivator in the front row suddenly shook. His face revealed an expression of wild joy. Wasn't this cultivator the foundation establishment stage cultivator who was previously peeping at Xiaohua from afar? This slight vibration was naturally very strange among the intoxicated and stupefied crowd. Not only were the surrounding cultivators slightly startled, their faces revealing expressions of jealousy. Even the gold core stage cultivator on the cloud platform also opened his eyes. However, when the cultivator's divine sense swept over, he immediately frowned. After listening to the lecture, he berated, "Yuhua, what are you doing? Are you comprehending something? Is there a sign of condensing one's core?" Disciple. The joy on the peak foundation establishment stage, Disciple's face disappeared. He whispered. Disciple was enlightened by Martial Uncle's words. It was very useful. But what? The gold core stage cultivator was still unhappy. Back then, you could be considered a handsome youth of my Heavenly Thunder Palace, but now you haven't been able to condense your core for nearly 100 years. I am here to talk about the experience of condensing one's core. What are you still not satisfied with? The foundation establishment stage Disciple was terrified. He lowered his head and said, Disciple doesn't dare. Disciple will listen attentively. The gold core stage cultivator snorted. He still closed his eyes and continued to lecture. However, after a day and a night, the foundation establishment stage Disciple was like an ant on a hot pan, scratching his ears and cheeks from time to time. How could he listen to a single word? Qianyuhua, what's the matter? The gold core stage cultivator angrily asked again. Yes, Martial Uncle knows. Qianyuhua stood up and saluted. Disciple is refining Ling Li pills in his cave residence. Disciple calculated with his fingers that these few days are the day when the pills will be formed. Disciple is anxious. Oh, why didn't you say it that day? Otherwise, you wouldn't have come to listen. Hearing this, the gold core stage cultivator's expression softened a little. He scolded, You can get lingy grass. You are really lucky. Ha! Martial Uncle's lecture. How dare I not listen? Qianyuhua smiled apologetically. And whether this Ling Li pill can be formed is still uncertain. I dare not delay. Well, you can go. The gold core stage cultivator flicked his sleeve and said, Thank you for your kindness. Qianyuhua bowed and was about to leave. The other cultivators next to him shouted, Senior Brother Qian, why didn't you tell us that you got lingy grass? How many Qinli pills can you refine? I don't know if we have any hope. Qianyuhua looked anxious, but he still put on a smile and said, Junior brothers, I will take a look first. If the pills can be formed, everything will be fine. I will keep one for myself and give the rest to you. Great. The others let Qianyuhua go. After Qianyuhua came out of the palace, he first hurried into a side hall and then flew out. After flying to a fairy-like cave residence, he hurriedly flew out and used the hibernating thunder escape to go in one direction. That direction was not the East Ridge Her Garden. However, half a day later, Qianyuhua's figure appeared outside the Eastern Ridge Her Garden. At this moment, Qianyuhua was also holding a token similar to Xiaohua's. Chapter 1810. Xiaohua's eyes were tightly shut, and the phoenix celestial body had already retracted into his body. After the phoenix celestial body had absorbed more than 30 days of fire essence flame crystals, the 13,200 virtual points within the celestial body actually seemed to have solidified. Within the solidification, there were some faint flames. The netherworld wind that formed the phoenix celestial body had also changed. It revolved around the 13,200 virtual points and actually formed 13,200 small wind pillars. The shape of the wind pillars looked exactly the same as the netherworld wind pillars. There were still a lot of fire essence flame crystals left in Xiaohua's meridians. After absorbing the same amount of fire essence flame crystals as last time, the Dragon Transformation Arts meridians also stopped absorbing. It was precisely because there were so many fire essence flame crystals in his meridians that Xiaohua's body was surrounded by flames. It was far from what the previous few times could compare to. Great, it really is the 18th level of qi refining. Xiaohua sensed the changes in his body and secretly rejoiced in his heart. He silently used the prairie fire cultivation technique to easily break through the barrier of the 17th level of qi refining. The scorching flames followed the circulation of true qi in the new meridians. The foundation establishment cultivation technique refined the flames into Xiaohua's own true qi. At this moment, Xiaohua suddenly felt a warning in his heart. The rabbit array he laid down was actually destroyed in an instant, and the attack that destroyed the array came from Tianzhong below him. Who? Xiaohua was shocked. His Buddhist sense swept down without hesitation. His Buddhist sense swept through the Tianzhong underground area, but he didn't find any abnormalities. What's going on? Xiaohua didn't dare to cultivate anymore. Just as he was about to escape into the ground with the flames around him to investigate, the fire array closest to him was once again destroyed. Not good. Xiaohua didn't have time to escape into the ground. He immediately flew out of the cave and slapped his hand. The cloud-suppressing seal immediately flew out. Along with the cloud-suppressing seal's buzzing sound, the surrounding hot fire spiritual energy flocked into the cloud-suppressing seal. The earthen yellow brilliance was strangely dazzling. Seeing the brilliance of the cloud-suppressing seal protecting him, Xiaohua's heart felt a bit more at ease. However, he still stood in the air very vigilantly. He still released his Buddhist sense and stared straight into the cave at the same time. What is this thing? What the naked eye could see was a pitch-black dot slowly flying toward him. Xiaohua couldn't help but be shocked. His Buddhist sense and divine sense couldn't see it clearly. It could only be vaguely seen with the naked eye. Quick! Xiaohua didn't know why he attracted this little black. He hurriedly stretched out his left hand and opened his delirium eyes. Immediately, it was as if he was looking directly at the sun with his naked eyes. A dazzling feeling came from the delirium eyes. Xiaohua couldn't help but groan and immediately closed his delirium eyes. However, what he saw through the delirium breaker eye was deeply imprinted in his mind. What a strange scene. The entire space was filled with a fiery red color, and at the location of the black, there was a fiery red like the sun. It was abnormally bright, and it was truly out of Xiaohua's expectations. It was like the intense brilliance of the scorching sun. Fire-type spiritual energy. Fire marrow flame crystal. Xiaohua suddenly came to a realization. But at the same time, he thought of the fire essence flame crystal. A kind of incomparable joy filled his heart. The origin of fire. This thing that he saw in the light escape technique immediately flashed in his mind. This is the origin of fire. Xiaohua almost groaned again. He had always been thinking about how to find the origin of fire. Even in the records of the Imperial Thunder Sect's great lightning palaces, there were no traces of it. He didn't expect that it would suddenly appear while he was cultivating. Flame essence, it really is the flame essence. A crazy voice suddenly sounded from behind Xiaohua. Who? Xiao Hua was shocked. His mind was shocked by the origin of fire, and he actually lost his vigilance. He didn't even know that someone had flown behind him. He clearly remembered that the Eastern Ridge Medicine Gardens array had been closed several dozen days ago. When he turned around and saw Qian Yuhua, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. A late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator? Damn, this cultivation is even more powerful than Masters. Qian Yuhua didn't even look at Xiao Hua. His gaze was fixed on the so-called flame essence. The passion in his eyes was even more fervent than when a man saw a naked virgin. It was a kind of naked desire. Senior, how did you come in? Xiao Hua's eyes turned slightly. He had a plan in mind, so he bowed and asked. Qian Yuhua didn't seem to hear and simply ignored Xiao Hua. His gaze was still fixed on the origin of fire, carefully observing the trajectory of the origin of fire as it slowly moved. Xiao Hua waited for a moment. When he saw that the origin of fire was closer to him, he couldn't help but be startled. He quickly flew a little further away. He knew that the fire marrow flame crystal was nothing more than the essence of fire. He had used a little and almost set himself on fire the first time. If his bones, phoenix body, and meridians hadn't absorbed the majority of it, he would have already turned into ashes. This origin of fire, how could it be so easy to endure? However, when he moved a little, the origin of fire also changed direction and flew toward Xiao Hua. At this time, Qian Yuhua seemed to have just seen Xiao Hua. He raised his eyes and curiously stared at the flames around Xiao Hua's body. He chuckled and said, Xiao Hua, what's the matter with the flames around your body? This old man seems to have only heard that you have a concealed fire physique, but I've never heard of you being able to create flames around your body. When Xiao Hua heard this, he was startled. However, he still respectfully replied, Senior, may I know your name, and how did you enter my Eastern Ridge Herb Garden? This old man doesn't need to tell you my name. As for how I came in, why should I tell you? You didn't tell me about the flames around your body, did you? Qian Yuhua asked with interest. Senior, do you have another token of the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden? Xiao Hua asked without hesitation. Qian Yuhua clapped his hands and took out a token. A trace of a smile appeared on his face as he said, That's right, this old man does have another token. However, this old man will no longer need it in the future. While speaking, a strand of Samadhi True Fire appeared in Qian Yuhua's hand. The Samadhi True Fire, which was mixed with a fiery red color, burned the token and turned it into several strands of black smoke that dissipated in the air. Xiao Hua's heart sank. His body involuntarily moved back a few feet. However, he still didn't want to give up. He glanced at the fire essence and bitterly smiled. Senior, did you come to the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden for this thing that even your divine sense can't see? That's right. What do you think? Qian Yuhua smiled. It was a satisfied smile as he replied to Xiao Hua with a smile. That's right. This junior doesn't know what this thing is. Moreover, this junior doesn't know who Senior is. Senior can directly take this thing away, and this junior will act as if I've never seen Senior. Xiao Hua immediately replied. At the same time, he flew several feet away. Chapter 1811. Qian Yuhua seemed to be moved. He glanced at the fire essence and the burning spiritual energy in the herb garden and nodded. Good. Since you are so tactful, this old man will let you go. Once this old man takes the fire essence, you can make a blood oath, and this old man will leave the Eastern Ridge. Good. Xiao Hua clapped his hands. Senior, please. Qian Yuhua slapped his hand and took out a fist-sized ball from his storage pouch. This ball was dark blue in color and was as pure as the blue sky. Go! Qian Yuhua threw the ball and formed a seal with his hand. A deep blue light flew out from the ball and covered the fire essence like a pillar of water. Rise! As Qian Yuhua made another spell, the light wrapped around the origin of fire and then retracted again. It wanted to take the origin of fire away. However, there was a soft, tearing sound, and a trace of mist rose from the deep blue light. The origin of fire came out from the mist. Xiao Hua was shocked, but Qian Yuhua was unmoved. He seemed to have expected this. He pointed his finger, and the ball flew out again, blocking Xiao Hua from the fire essence. The dark blue light spat out as it waited for the fire essence to enter the jar. Just as Qian Yuhua had expected, the fire origin easily entered the sphere. It didn't go around like he expected. Qian Yuhua waved his hand, and the ball immediately flew into his hand. However, the moment the ball moved, a loud kacha sound came from the ball. A deep blue brilliance flew out from the ball like a flood and mixed into the hot spiritual energy. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared, and the pitch-black collapse appeared outside the ball again. Xiao Hua instantly understood that the fire essence was truly scorching hot, and the magic tools or treasures within the sphere were simply unable to resist the scorching heat of the fire essence. So they were simply unable to take it away. Qian Yuhua waved his hand, and the ball fell into his hand. After putting it away, he took out a 1-foot-long ruler. The ruler was surrounded by lightning. It was clearly the magic treasure of a lightning cultivator from the Imperial Thunder sect. Go! Qian Yuhua snorted and waved his ruler. The rumbling sound flew into the air and turned into a rectangular ball of lightning. This lightning ball was the same as the previous one. It covered the fire origin from top to bottom. As Qian Yuhua formed hand seals, the lightning ball slowly sealed the fire origin inside. Withdraw. Qian Yuhua rubbed his thumb and forefinger together. The ball of lightning trembled and flew towards Qian Yuhua. However, to Qian Yuhua's disappointment, after the ball of lightning flew away, the fire origin continued to fly toward Xiao Hua. It wasn't absorbed by the ball of lightning at all. Instead, there was a fist-sized hole in the ball of lightning. Qian Yuhua's expression darkened, and he couldn't help but look at Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua's face, which was surrounded by flames, revealed a trace of bitterness. He quickly flew to the side to increase the distance between him and the fire origin. Qian Yuhua's eyes narrowed after seeing Xiao Hua's reaction. He clapped his hands again and took out a cauldron about 1 meter wide. Pop! It landed on the ground below him. Then, Qian Yuhua waved his hand and took out a fan. Isn't this the Yang Leaf fan? Xiao Hua was stunned when he saw the fan. Qian Yuhua's fan was exactly the same as his. Qian Yuhua first formed several hand seals on the cauldron. The cauldron lit up with bright flames. Then, Qian Yuhua used his spiritual power to move the Yang Leaf fan. Flames flew out from the fan and rushed into the cauldron. The flames in the cauldron suddenly transformed into the shape of fire crows. A dozen fire crows rotated in the cauldron and sucked in the surrounding fire spiritual qi. Qian Yuhua's move was indeed effective. The fire origin really stopped. The fire essence is a heaven-defying treasure. Since this old man obtained it, I must rely on it to step into foundation establishment and gold core. Even nascent soul is not impossible. How could I let others know such a secret? Then, the several qi refining disciples who died in the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden were all seniors' handiwork. Xiao Hua's heart stirred. The other disciples? Qian Yuhua was stunned. He waved his hand and said, "This old man only cares about the fire essence. What do those disciples have to do with me? If you hadn't encountered the fire essence, this old man might not have taken your life." Humph! Xiao Hua snorted. How could he believe this? What was the difference between seizing his body and taking his life? Senior wants to seize my body? I'm afraid it won't be that easy. Xiao Hua pointed with his finger, and the cloud-suppressing seal emitted a faint rumbling sound. It shrunk once again. You're just a qi-refining disciple. This old man is at the peak of foundation establishment. Although seizing your body isn't as easy as seizing your body by a gold core cultivator, the chances of success are still quite high. This old man's lifespan is about to end. Why would I care about these things? Qian Yuhua slapped his forehead and released the pressure of a late foundation establishment cultivator. It was like a huge boulder pressing down from above. Feeling the incomparably heavy pressure, Xiao Hua sighed inwardly. The reason why qi refining cultivators were said to not have set foot on the path of cultivation was because they didn't have any pressure. In front of a Foundation establishment cultivator, they had no power to fight back. As long as he reached Foundation establishment, even if he was only at the early stage, his pressure should be able to resist Qian Yuhua for a while. I'll let you see this young master's power. Xiaohua also smiled coldly. That smile looked very strange in the flames around him. Xiaohua's body shook, and a phoenix battle form that was also surrounded by flames appeared. As soon as the phoenix Dharma body appeared, it immediately spread its several zhonglong wings. With a screech, the Dharma body emitted a desolate aura that blocked Qian Yuhua's pressure in midair. Good. Xiaohua felt that he couldn't move a moment ago. Although there was still a bit of pressure around his body, it was much stronger than when he first used the Vajra Dharma body to block it. This bit of pressure was practically nothing. You actually have a true spirit bloodline? Qian Yuhua was shocked. Aren't you a rogue cultivator? Go! Xiaohua didn't waste time talking nonsense with him. The Phoenix Dharma body spread its wings and clawed at Qian Yuhua. Its golden claws were dazzling in the dense fire spiritual energy. With a whoosh, the Phoenix Dharma body's claws streaked across the air and struck Qian Yuhua's forehead. Oof! Ignorant! Qian Yuhua sneered. He raised his left hand, and a foot-long thunder palm struck the Phoenix Dharma body's claws. Ka-ka! The thunder palm's power was so great that it actually pushed the Phoenix Dharma body's claws several inches higher. The Phoenix Dharma body let out another screech and flapped its wings, attacking Qian Yuhua's body from the left and right. At the same time, Xiaohua's cloud-suppressing seal also flew through the air. As Xiaohua formed a seal, the cloud-suppressing seal trembled in the air. Several clouds fell from the cloud-suppressing seal and smashed toward Qian Yuhua with lightning speed. Ha-ha! Qian Yuhua laughed in the face of Xiaohua's attack. If a tiger doesn't show its might, you'll think it's a sick cat. As he spoke, he shook his arms. His Taoist robe flashed with brilliance. As the robe rose, it actually blocked the Phoenix Dharma body's wings, making a dull sound. Alas, as expected of a late Foundation establishment cultivator. Xiaohua felt the same as the Phoenix Dharma body. He immediately felt the dense spiritual energy in the Taoist robe. This spiritual energy was born from true essence and was far from what Xiaohua could compare to. Even though the Phoenix Dharma body was powerful, it couldn't break through Qian Yuhua's defense. On one hand, Xiaohua was still using the Phoenix Dharma body to resist Qian Yuhua's pressure and harass him. On the other hand, Xiaohua was using the cloud-suppressing seal, hoping to win with a magic treasure. Your magic treasure is a bit strange. Qian Yuhua immediately sensed the boundless karma of the cloud-suppressing seal, and a strange expression appeared on his face. However, it was only a slight change. He activated a secret cultivation method in his body, and the karma disappeared without a trace. Moreover, Qian Yuhua waved the sun leaf fan in his hand, and the surrounding fire spirit Qi was immediately driven by the sun leaf fan. It then turned into a fire dragon and rushed toward the clouds scattered by the cloud-suppressing seal. Chapter 18:12. Whoosh! A burst of flames burned the seal. The clouds first turned red, then crimson. In the blink of an eye, they turned into nothingness as if they were burned by the flames. Xiaohua's expression changed. This was the first time he met an opponent with the cloud-suppressing seal. However, he didn't doubt that if Qian Yuhua was killed by the seal, he wouldn't be a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator. While he was thinking, Xiaohua rubbed his hands and released dozens of clouds from the cloud-suppressing seal, which continued to smash towards Qian Yuhua. He waved his hand again, and the cloud-suppressing seal flew back. Xiaohua's figure rose up and grabbed the cloud-suppressing seal with his hand. With a loud shout, he first poured his spiritual energy into the cloud-suppressing seal. Then, just like the Vajra Dharma body, he gathered all his strength and smashed the cloud-suppressing seal towards Qian Yuhua. Qian Yuhua still had a smile on his face. He waved his Taoist robe to block the phoenix celestial body while gently fanning his yang leaf fan. Raging flames surged from the fan and melted the clouds of the cloud-suppressing seal. However, when the cloud-suppressing seal attacked again, the whistling wind and the faint deterrence of a Dharma treasure caused Qian Yuhua to frown. Qian Yuhua moved. He actually used the hibernating thunder escape. Before the cloud-suppressing seal smashed into his defense, he quickly dodged to the side. Contrary to Qian Yuhua's expectations, the seal didn't miss. Instead, it followed his body and smashed towards him without any decrease in momentum. Oh, is this a spirit tool? Qian Yuhua was stunned. Bam! The cloud-suppressing seal smashed into his arm that he couldn't dodge in time. Ouch! Qian Yuhua cried out in pain. The light on his arm flickered as if it was on the verge of being annihilated. Moreover, as the cloud-suppressing seal was raised, palm-sized fragments fell from his Taoist robe. Whoosh! Qian Yuhua waved his hand, and a dragon-like flame shot out from his yang leaf fan. It surged around the seal and pushed it into the air. Hiss! Qian Yuhua couldn't help but groan. He looked at his injured arm with shame and anger. He urged his magic power, and the light on his arm surged again to protect him. However, the arm that was injured by the suppressing cloud seal was still in pain. Xiaohua, this old man still underestimated you. Qian Yuhua grinned evilly, but his eyes flashed with satisfaction and joy. The more outstanding Xiaohua's cultivation was, the more valuable it would be to possess him. How could he not be happy? Sigh, magic power, magic power. Xiaohua watched as Qian Yuhua took out 2 medicinal pills from his storage pouch. He swallowed one and chewed the other before spraying it on his arm. He knew that although the cloud-suppressing seal was effective, it didn't have much of an effect. Moreover, the cloud-suppressing seal was severely burned by the surging fire clouds. It flipped several times and couldn't be lowered. He couldn't help but sigh at the difference between true essence and true qi. When Qian Yuhua waved his Taoist robe and blocked Xiaohua's phoenix celestial body, Xiaohua clenched his teeth and flew towards Qian Yuhua. Seeing Xiaohua flying towards him, Qian Yuhua was delighted. Just as he was about to cast a spell, he frowned and glanced down. You have a lot of things, don't you? This old man forgot about you, puppet. The snake-shaped puppet flew towards Qian Yuhua's feet at the same time as Xiaohua, opening its mouth to bite Qian Yuhua's foot. Go! Qian Yuhua naturally didn't think that the puppet would really bite him. He kicked his foot slightly, and a hazy light flew out. Not only did it block the puppet's path, but it also sent it flying to the side. At this time, Xiaohua had also flown to Qian Yuhua's left side. Xiaohua waved his hand as if he was taking something out of his storage pouch. A rather large devil hammer appeared in his hand. As Xiaohua waved it, a wind several times fiercer than the cloud-suppressing seal appeared and smashed towards Qian Yuhua. Demonic weapon? Qian Yuhua was completely shocked. He didn't expect Xiaohua to have so many hidden methods. In a hurry, he waved his left hand and cast several spells, instantly setting up several fiery red defenses in front of him. Pa! 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 The demonic hammer hit the top of Qian Yuhua's defense. It was like smashing glass. The defense shattered into sparks and fell to the ground. I've underestimated you. Qian Yuhua was startled. Seeing that the demonic hammer was about to hit his arm again, Qian Yuhua hurriedly used the hibernating lightning escape to dodge to the side. But at this moment, a red and green sword light suddenly flew out of the snake-shaped puppet that he had just knocked aside. It fiercely blocked the direction in which he wanted to dodge. A flying sword? Qian Yuhua knew with a sweep of his divine sense. Moreover, the boundless negative karma from the dream executioner was making the mental cultivation method in his body feel strained. Qian Yuhua knew how powerful the demonic hammer was and didn't dare to take it head-on like before. He still retreated towards the dream executioner, but with a wave of his Taoist robe, several fiery red lights appeared and blocked the dream executioner's sword. I'll let you have a taste of my power. The demonic hammer in Xiaohua's hand didn't change. His other hand formed a sword seal, and a red and green sword light instantly split into 8. 4 of them were blocked by the red brilliance, while the other 4 pierced into Qian Yuhua's Taoist robe at an extremely fast speed. Poof! The four sword lights stabbed into Qian Yuhua's armpits at the same time. As the Dream Executioner's sword light surged, the light on Qian Yuhua's Taoist robe flashed violently. Qian Yuhua felt that something was wrong and immediately flew up. The Dream Executioner was actually able to pierce through Qian Yuhua's Taoist robe. It could probably leave 4 bloody marks on Qian Yuhua's body. Go! Xiao Hua was overjoyed and also flew up. The demonic hammer was still aimed at Qian Yuhua's leg. The Dream Executioner paused in midair and then flew up again to chase after Qian Yuhua. Forget it. Seeing how powerful Xiao Hua was, Qian Yuhua's playful mood was long gone. He wanted to protect Xiao Hua's body and take over his body. Qian Yuhua waved his hand, and several fire dragons flew towards Xiao Hua and the Dream Executioner. Qian Yuhua flew to the side and first took a pill to heal himself. Then he stood in midair and pondered. The flames of the Yangye fan were indeed powerful. It actually blocked the Dream Executioner. Xiao Hua also had some misgivings. When the fire dragons flew towards him, he used the demonic hammer to break them apart. He didn't chase after them. During this brief pause, Xiao Hua suddenly felt a burning sensation on his back. Without any hesitation, Xiao Hua dodged to the left. He had almost forgotten that there was a fire essence chasing after him in the eastern ridge. Although it was a good thing, Xiao Hua didn't know how to use it. If he rashly came into contact with it, he would definitely be burned into nothingness like Qian Yuhua's Dharma artifact earlier. Chapter 1813. Ha ha ha! Qian Yuhua laughed from afar. Naturally, he saw the fire essence flying towards him and stopped to see if Xiao Hua was hit. When he saw Xiao Hua dodge, he slapped his hand and took out a long sword from his storage pouch. A magic tool. Xiao Hua was vigilant, but when he saw Qian Yuhua take out magic tool, he couldn't help but be stunned. However, Qian Yuhua didn't care about Xiao Hua's doubts at all. His figure once again flew toward Xiao Hua. He waved his yang leaf fan to block the cloud-suppressing seal with one hand and slowly swung his long sword with the other. As the long sword danced, a shadow of the long sword emerged from the long sword. It gathered Qian Yuhua's magic power and pressed down on Xiao Hua with an earth-shattering force. Isn't this a magic tool? Xiao Hua was shocked and blurted out. Haha, ignorant child. Qian Yuhua sneered and waved his Taoist robe, releasing a large amount of light to block the Dream Executioner. With your magic power, what's the difference between using a magic tool with my magic power? Don't think that any magic tool is good. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be careless. Seeing the sword phantoms flying towards him, he knew Qian Yuhua wasn't lying. Qian Yuhua's magic power was indeed profound. Although Xiao Hua's magic power wasn't inferior to that of a mid-foundation establishment cultivator, it was only true qi in his meridians and not true essence. Even if it was true essence, Qian Yuhua was a peak foundation establishment cultivator. Xiao Hua hurriedly brandished his devil hammer, wanting to block the sword images. Ka-ka-ka-ka, several ear-splitting sounds rang out as the sword images all landed on the devil hammer. A huge force was transmitted from the devil hammer, shaking Xiao Hua back in the air. Xiao Hua had always used strength to break magic. Now that he met Qian Yuhua, who used magic power to exchange for strength, Xiao Hua had no choice but to suffer in front of Qian Yuhua's powerful magic power. Magic power and strength were both ordinary. Sometimes it depended on who was more powerful. Qian Yuhua laughed heartily when he saw that his sword had succeeded. He used the hibernating lightning escape to catch up with Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua's figure moved. He wanted to use the bright thunder escape, but he resisted and still used ordinary flying techniques. He fled left and right, using the demonic hammer to block the long sword while commanding the phoenix battle form to continue fighting Qian Yuhua. In the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, Xiao Hua was in danger several times. His phoenix celestial body was also shattered by Qian Yuhua's longsword, and he was almost caught up by the fire origin. It still won't work. Xiao Hua tried his best to resist while thinking to himself, this guy's magic power is deeper than mine. I don't see any signs of exhaustion at this moment. Moreover, the defense around his body is also very tight. My method, I'm afraid it might not be effective. Even though Dream Executioner can't hurt him, he can still wear down his defenses. This young master will have to endure for a while longer. After making up his mind, Xiao Hua's eyes turned. He felt that the Devil Hammer didn't have any advantage over Qian Yuhua's sword. Moreover, although his magic power couldn't compare to Qian Yuhua's, he still had a lot of fire from the Fire Marrow Flame Crystal in his meridians. Why couldn't he speed up the tempering process? With that thought in mind, Xiao Hua put away the demonic hammer, clapped his hands, and took out the Yang Leaf Fan. Xiao Hua, do you also have a Yang Leaf Fan? Qian Yuhua grinned. You're only an aura-refining disciple, yet you dare to compete with me with a magic weapon? How do you know who's stronger if you don't try? Xiao Hua sneered. The dragonization art in his body sped up, and the Prairie Blaze Heart Sutra in his meridians sped up the tempering of the flames. The true chi generated turned into magic power and rushed into the Yang Leaf Fan. With a whoosh, Xiao Hua waved the Yang Leaf Fan, just like Qian Yuhua. A fire dragon that wasn't inferior to Qian Yuhua's flew out from the Yang Leaf Fan and rushed into Qian Yuhua's sword shadow. Strange. Seeing the power of the Yang Leaf Fan, Qian Yuhua was shocked. He was already shocked when Xiao Hua used the cloud-suppressing seal several times to block his Yang Leaf Fan. He didn't expect Xiao Hua to take out another magic weapon. Even he, a peak foundation establishment cultivator, couldn't use two magic weapons at the same time. This guy, Qian Yuhua's shock didn't disappear. He thought Xiao Hua was using a secret technique to summon the Yang Leaf Fan as a last-ditch struggle. He thought he only needed to hold on for a while, and Xiao Hua's magic power would be exhausted and he would lose without a fight. He didn't expect Xiao Hua to not only use the cloud-suppressing seal to entangle his Yang Leaf Fan, but he also used the Dream Executioner to wear down his defense bit by bit. In the end, the Yang Leaf Fan successfully blocked his sword dance. Qian Yuhua knew that his divine sense was limited and he couldn't use two magic weapons at the same time. Therefore, he specifically looked for a suitable magic weapon for the sword dance. This sword dance had accompanied him for over 100 years, and its power wasn't inferior to an ordinary magic weapon. Just now, when he fought with Xiao Hua's Devil Hammer, he saw its power. However, when Xiao Hua first waved the Sun Leaf Fan, it was still a little obscure. The fire dragon in the Sun Leaf Fan was slightly damaged, and the power of the flames was far from being comparable to Qian Yuhua's Sun Leaf Fan. It was difficult to deal with the sword shadows of the sword dance. Occasionally, some of the sword shadows would break through the flames and attack Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua had no choice but to use some strange movement skills to dodge the sword shadows. However, after a long time, Qian Yuhua felt something was wrong. The fire dragon flying out of the Yang Leaf Fan became more and more round. Although the fire couldn't compare to his Yang Leaf Fan, Xiao Hua's magic power didn't show any signs of exhaustion. This guy's magic power, could it be related to the flames around his body? Qian Yuhua thought to himself. As soon as he entered the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden's magic array, he felt that the fire's spiritual energy here was too rich, and Xiao Hua's body was surrounded by flames. Naturally, he had his suspicions, but he couldn't ask why. At this time, he naturally linked the two together. However, even if he knew something was wrong, Qian Yuhua wouldn't retreat. His thoughts are the same as Xiao Hua's. This flame essence was something he had to obtain. Moreover, Xiao Hua was an aura-refining cultivator, so there was no way he could escape. Therefore, a very strange situation occurred. One was a peak foundation establishment cultivator, and the other was a peak aura-refining cultivator. Unexpectedly, they were locked in a fierce battle in the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden. What was even more strange was that the peak aura-refining disciple was using two magic weapons, 8 sword lights, and a Dharma body. He wasn't at a disadvantage at all. Moreover, the magic weapon in the aura-refining disciple's hand was exactly the same as the Foundation Establishment Cultivator's magic weapon. The two sides were evenly matched in their battle. Perhaps it was because both sides had the intention to fight, but Xiaohua was still dodging the fire essence from time to time. The battle between the two quickly went on for a day and a night. During this day and night, the two had consumed a lot of magic power. The flames around Xiaohua's body had somewhat withered, not having 70% of their previous strength. Qian Yuhua had also taken many medicinal pills, so he was barely able to cope with the current situation. After such a long battle, Qian Yuhua finally understood that the Xiaohua in front of him was not as simple as the Xiaohua he had inquired about. If he wasn't a peak foundation establishment cultivator and only lacked the opportunity to condense his core, he would have already been defeated by Xiaohua's endless magic power. Seeing that Xiaohua's magic power didn't show any signs of weakening, and his own magic power was nearly exhausted, and his protective magic weapon was nearly worn out by the Dream Executioner, Qian Yuhua unconsciously wanted to retreat. But at that moment, a strange change occurred. Xiaohua circulated his arcane energy and waved the sun leaf fan with all his might. Most of his arcane energy was formed from his own true qi, and some of it was formed from the fire marrow flame crystals that he had yet to refine. After a long period of fighting, the sun leaf fan in his hand could no longer withstand the pressure. As he waved, the sun leaf fan first emitted a strand of orange light, igniting itself. "This is bad." Seeing this, Xiaohua couldn't help but complain. He threw away the yang leaf fan and immediately took out the aquamarine pearl from his space. However, right now, the Eastern Ridge is the world of fire-type spiritual energy. Xiaohua also has the fire origin chasing after him. Not to mention the fire-type spiritual energy in Xiaohua's meridians. This aqua blue pearl can only display 20% of its power. The blue watery light couldn't block the sword dance, and several sword lights fell on Xiaohua's shoulders. With his zung-zung sound, the spiritual armor on Xiaohua's body emitted a fiery red brilliance and blocked the sword lights. Oh my, he also has a magic weapon. Qian Yuhua was already used to this, but he was still a bit surprised. This is it. Qian Yuhua took advantage of the moment when Xiaohua withdrew the aquamarine pearl and took out the demonic hammer to throw the sword dance. It turned into a bolt of lightning and pierced towards Xiaohua's face. Then he clapped his hands and took out a shiny talisman. Qian Yuhua spat a mouthful of essence blood on the talisman, and the talisman turned purple. Go! Qian Yuhua's face darkened. He chanted a mantra, and the magic energy in his body surged into the talisman. The talisman turned into a 3-meter-long purple-red hand that grabbed at Xiaohua like a giant boulder. The giant purple hand carried an incomparable might, making Xiaohua feel like he couldn't resist. Moreover, under the giant hand, his whole body seemed to be imprisoned, making it impossible for him to resist. Xiaohua wanted to use his phoenix avatar to block the giant hand, but the giant hand was too fast, and his avatar was on the other side of Qian Yuhua. Dang! The sword dance hit Xiaohua's hastily taken out demonic hammer, and Xiaohua's figure was knocked down several feet. All right, success or failure. Let's do it again. Seeing that Qian Yuhua's giant hand talisman was something he couldn't contend against, and then seeing that Qian Yuhua was a bit weak after using the talisman, Xiaohua steeled his heart and waved the devil hammer in his hand. His body suddenly moved, and the bright thunder escape that he had been holding back for a long time suddenly erupted. He rushed towards Qian Yuhua like a meteor. Bright thunder escape? Qian Yuhua's shock was not as great as before. He clearly saw that the bright thunder escape he had dreamed of was actually used by a peak Qi refinement disciple. The bright thunder escape was indeed worthy of its reputation. Even as Qian Yuhua tried to use the hibernating thunder escape to escape, Xiaohua was already in front of him. Chapter 1814. Qian Yuhua was shocked when he saw the devil hammer flying toward him, but he didn't panic. Although the devil hammer was heavy and Xiaohua was strong, it couldn't break through his magic power defense. Sure enough, with a muffled bang, Qian Yuhua's body flashed with brilliance. Qian Yuhua had only used a bit of magic power, but the giant hand in the air was already chasing after him. Xiao Hua's body could no longer move. Right at this moment, Xiao Hua opened his mouth slightly, and another red and green ray of light shot out from his mouth. Qian Yuhua heaved a sigh of relief when he saw the same sword light. Although this sword light was aimed in the direction of the devil hammer, which was also where his heart was, he had no doubt that his protective treasure would be able to block it. Therefore, Qian Yuhua's gaze landed on the purple-red giant hand with ease. He poured all of his magic power into the giant hand. This was his last resort and also a life-saving measure. He would not use it until the last moment. If Xiao Hua had not been so strong today, he would not have used his blood essence. For a cultivator like him who was close to the end of his life, blood essence was much more precious than magic power. Seeing that the huge hand was about to land on Xiao Hua's immobile back, Qian Yuhua's body also flashed with a protective brilliance. However, the moment the brilliance flashed, the cyan-red flying sword suddenly burst into an abnormally brilliant fiery red color. The originally insignificant flying sword's aura instantly soared by more than 10 times. Qian Yuhua's magic power defense only resisted for a moment before it was completely destroyed. Not good. Qian Yuhua's divine sense could not follow the flying sword. Seeing the abnormality with the flying sword, he immediately used his divine sense secret technique and did not hesitate to use all of his magic power to mend the pen after the sheep was lost. Unfortunately, the consumable magic treasure that Xiao Hua had hidden for a day and a night was refined by a golden core cultivator. Its power was too overbearing. Qian Yuhua's divine sense had only just touched the magic treasure. Even his right hand gave up on resisting the phoenix celestial body and tried to grab the magic treasure. All of this was in vain. The magic treasure hummed and disappeared into Qian Yuhua's body. With a muffled bang, a large bloody hole appeared in Qian Yuhua's chest. Not only was there a hole in his magic treasure, but his chest was also pierced through. Qian Yuhua's eyes were filled with disbelief. He stared at Xiao Hua's joyful face and slightly raised his finger. He was still somewhat unwilling to fall from the sky. At the same time, the joy on Xiao Hua's face disappeared as his body suddenly fell. He paid the price of falling into the trap to kill Qian Yuhua, but this trap had already landed on his back. With a loud bang, the huge hand struck Xiao Hua's back in extremely fast speed. Xiao Hua's back was instantly covered with a flash of lightning. The defensive effect of the protective armor on his back had taken effect. However, the giant hand's power was too great. Following a series of crackling sounds, all of the lightning was extinguished by the giant hand. Xiao Hua screamed and spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was even faster than Qian Yuhua's corpse as he was smashed into the mountain rocks of the eastern mountain. After the giant hand hit Xiao Hua, a golden light flashed and it turned into a tattered spirit talisman. It floated down from the sky and floated down. Coincidentally, the fire origin also caught up with Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua spat out a mouthful of blood into the pitch-black void, and at the same time the red blood was burned away, the golden threads within the blood also entered the fire origin, disappearing without a trace. Then, the fire origin changed its direction and flew towards Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua's entire body was smashed into the mountain rocks. He only felt his vision darken, and he almost fainted. Before he could even groan and move his hands and feet, a scorching heat descended from the sky, pouncing towards his back. Damn it, is there an end to this? Xiao Hua bitterly smiled and forcefully circulated his true qi and magic power. His body flew down the mountain rocks. Who would have thought that after the fire essence obtained the golden threads in Xiao Hua's blood, its movement speed would actually increase? It followed Xiao Hua and flew down. The mountain rocks it touched were all turned into magma in an instant. Most of them were also vaporized. Oh my god, this fire essence, how powerful is it? Xiao Hua grasped the fire essence's speed and flew in front while secretly looking back. He was shocked. How do I temper such a ferocious thing in the world? Xiaohua thought about the light escape technique in his heart. It seemed to only talk about practicing the 5 elements escape technique, tempering the 7 colors of the bones, and using the 5 elements to temper the bones. As for how to temper the bones and how to use the 5 elements, it didn't mention a single word. It was as if it was an extremely easy and simple matter that was not worth mentioning. The only thing a cultivation technique needed to provide was a direction to practice. As for how to practice, it was a trivial matter. Damn it, what kind of cultivation technique is this? Xiao Hua felt as if he had boarded a pirate ship. This was the fire essence that even a late-stage Foundation establishment realm cultivator was helpless against. He wanted to temper it into his bones. How ridiculous was this? Oh, right. Since this Foundation establishment realm cultivator came to collect the fire essence, he must have made a lot of preparations. This young master doesn't understand, but I can look for his jade slip. Xiao Hua suddenly realized and immediately flew to the side of Qian Yuhua's corpse. He took out the giant hand talisman and his storage pouch. There were many things in Qian Yuhua's storage pouch. Xiao Hua only took a rough look. He first took out the jade slip and looked at it for a long time. Finally, he found the content he wanted to know in an inconspicuous and mottled jade slip. However, when he finished reading the contents, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Alas, this guy, he really died in vain. Xiao Hua smacked his lips and looked at Qian Yuhua's corpse. He threw a fireball at it and shook his head. No wonder this guy called the fire essence when he saw it. It turns out this guy thought it was a fire essence flame crystal. This method of using the fire essence is similar to this young master's method and Zhong Yao's method. This cultivation technique can't temper a fire essence flame crystal. If this young master let him take away the fire essence, he would definitely be burned to a crisp by the fire essence. Xiao Hua thought without malice. But soon after, he became worried. This fire origin was like a small tail that couldn't be shaken off. It followed him from underground to the surface, and then from the surface to the air. No matter how he tried, he couldn't shake it off. Moreover, Xiao Hua also tried using the bright thunder escape to fly to another part of the Eastern Medicine Garden in a short period of time. But although the fire origin was moving slowly, the direction it was flying in wasn't slow at all. Xiao Hua simply couldn't shake it off. Chapter 18:15. This is good. Xiao Hua was helpless. If he didn't deal with the fire origin, he wouldn't be able to go anywhere. He could only fly around the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden and play with the fire origin. Qian Yuhua's corpse had already been incinerated, leaving only a 1-foot-long spirit armor on the ground. Xiao Hua took the time to put away the spirit armor and saw a hole the size of a baby's fist in the middle of the armor. It was Xiao Hua's consumable artifact that broke it. Fortunately, I had the magic tool refined by a golden core cultivator. Xiao Hua still had some lingering fear. If it weren't for that magic tool, he would have been imprisoned by the golden hand. His life and death wouldn't have been up to him. Not necessarily. Don't I also have a spiritual armor? Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and thought to himself. He then put away Qian Yuhua's sword, Yiyang Fan, and the talisman he used before. Afterward, he looked at the ground and saw that there were no more traces of Qian Yuhua. Only then did he think about how to deal with the fire origin. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua didn't know how many methods he came up with, but he didn't have absolute confidence. This thing couldn't be tested, so Xiao Hua could only fly around the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden. After flying for a day and a night, when the first ray of sunlight shone on Xiao Hua's body from the eastern horizon, he took in a breath of the sun's essence. When his gaze fell on his flying shadow on the ground, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Could it be? Immediately after, the scene of his mind seeing the light escape technique appeared in his mind. It was a figure that looked like a human, but not a human. It was currently raising its hands and gesturing with its feet. Xiao Hua couldn't understand its movements. Big Dipper Divine Fist? Xiao Hua somewhat understood. But if I practice the Big Dipper Divine Fist on my own, then how will I refine the fire origin? Xiao Hua was confused again. However, he could not do it. His current thoughts were the closest to the truth. Moreover, they were somewhat similar to the light escape technique. After contending with the fire origin for a while, Xiaohua landed on the ground. He looked at the fire origin and held his breath. When he was about 1 chi away from the fire origin, Xiaohua spread his arms and moved his feet on the ground. This was the starting stance of the Big Dipper God Fist. As Xiaohua struck out with the Big Dipper God Fist, a warm current emerged from Xiaohua's left foot and began to slowly temper his bones along with his moves. Xiaohua stared at the gradually approaching pitch black hole. He was waiting for anything to go wrong, and he would immediately jump up. However, a miraculous scene appeared. The origin of fire first slowly flew towards Xiaohua's body, and Xiaohua could almost feel the incomparable heat of the origin of fire. Just as Xiaohua was about to give up, the origin of fire actually slowed down and finally stopped. There's hope. Xiaohua was overjoyed. He didn't dare to stop his starting stance, and immediately followed up with the second move. However, the second move required him to use his fist. If the fire origin didn't move, Xiaohua probably wouldn't be able to use the second move. At this moment, the fire origin moved as if there was a suction force emerging from the bottom of Xiaohua's left foot. The fire origin rushed into the ground at an even faster speed than before. Soon after, it followed Xiaohua's bones, where the warm current had appeared and entered. Suddenly, a pain that Xiaohua had never felt before came from his left foot. The fire origin seemed to be melting Xiaohua's bones inch by inch. Inch by inch, the bones were peeled off from Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua's entire body was trembling. Beads of sweat, which had never appeared before, covered his entire body. The Eastern Ridge's medicinal garden was no longer in front of his eyes. His entire body seemed to have fallen into a scorching, tearing space. Xiaohua's arms and legs were trembling. He was almost unable to continue with the Big Dipper Divine Fist, but his heart was like a mirror. The Big Dipper Divine Fist was his life-saving straw. At this moment, it was different from usual. He couldn't be the slightest bit careless. As long as there was a single mistake in the Big Dipper Divine Fist, the fire origin would immediately turn his bones into nothingness. Therefore, he forced himself to endure, and his teeth creaked as he clenched them. Unfortunately, Xiaohua was an aura-refining cultivator after all. His patience was really limited. As his arms trembled, the warm current faintly seemed to be about to stop. In his panic, Xiaohua suddenly remembered the Buddhist sect's Vajradharma body. Now, he couldn't care too much. His body shook, and the Phoenix Dharma body immediately broke free from his body. With a resounding cry, it spread its wings in midair. As soon as the Phoenix Dharma body appeared, the pain in Xiaohua's bones seemed to lessen by half. The warm current continued to move forward. Great! Xiaohua was overjoyed. At the same time, the Buddhist sect's Heart Sutra began to circulate without caring about anything else. The Phoenix Dharma body also began to dance along with Xiaohua's fighting god fist in midair. The Heart Sutra that Xiaohua used was naturally wrong. It didn't have any benefits for the Phoenix Dharma body's cultivation. However, it was quite effective in eliminating the pain. Moreover, as the Heart Sutra circulated, the 132 million slightly condensed dots in the Phoenix Dharma body actually slowly pulled apart. The entire Phoenix Dharma body gradually grew larger. Since the pain had lessened, Xiaohua's heart also calmed down. Although the bones seemed to disappear every time the fire origin passed by, Xiaohua still stood on the eastern ridge and continued to perform the Big Dipper magical fist. Therefore, Xiaohua was very much looking forward to seeing what the fire origin would look like after tempering the bones. Xiaohua might be able to see it with his delirium eyes, but he didn't have time to spare at this moment. The pitch-black collapse of the fire origin passed through Xiaohua's bones. Every time it passed, Xiaohua's bones, which had already returned to their original gray-white color, once again turned scarlet red. However, this scarlet red color was only 99%. Moreover, the scarlet red color wasn't spread evenly. The scarlet-red color was formed by thin red threads. The pitch-black collapse passed through the bones, and the bones that passed through all emitted a transparent color. The red threads began to spread and began to merge with each other. It was as if the red color was gradually sprinkling on Xiao Hua's bones. However, the fire origin passed through too quickly. The red fusion wasn't completely uniform, and also didn't completely fill up all the white areas. Very quickly, the 108 moves of the Big Dipper magical fist were finished. Xiao Hua didn't dare to stop. With a wave of his hand, he began to perform the Big Dipper magical fist from the end to the end. The fire origin followed the warm current and tempered the bones once again. When the complete Big Dipper magical fist was finished, Xiao Hua faintly felt that the pain had lessened by a bit. Moreover, he could also feel that his bones had also improved a bit. Continue. Xiao Hua made a decision without the slightest hesitation. His hands and feet didn't stop as he continued to perform the Big Dipper magical fist. Over and over again, every time he struck, the heart-wrenching pain would lessen a little bit, and his bones would appear a little bit more. After striking 360 times, which was the number of cycles, the pain finally disappeared without a trace. The instant Xiao Hua stopped, an incomparably comfortable feeling spread out from his bones. Xiao Hua felt as if he was about to ascend to the heavens, as if he was about to become an immortal. At this time, all the bones in Xiao Hua's body were completely red. Moreover, they were almost red and transparent. Roar! Xiao Hua didn't hesitate to let out a long roar. Following his long roar, the Phoenix Dharma body, which was already 10 zhang in size, also let out a long roar. Ha ha! Xiao Hua laughed loudly. Just as he was about to withdraw his Dharma body, pain came from the bones of his left foot again. This pain was different from before. It was actually the pain of his flesh being torn apart. Damn it, Xiao Hua grimaced and cursed. Why, is it not done again? Fortunately, Xiao Hua had already experienced incomparable pain just now. This pain was still bearable. Knowing that the Big Dipper magical fist wouldn't work anymore, Xiao Hua simply sat down cross-legged, just like when he was refining the fire essence and flame crystal. He still operated the Buddhist Heart Sutra and let the Phoenix Dharma body cultivate outside his body. The fire origin was also strange. The path it traveled was very regular. It started from one of the small dots in Xiao Hua's body, one after another, one after another. Everywhere it passed, the small black that would give birth to a wisp of black flame. Then, the flame would be annihilated by the black dot. As the flame was annihilated, the black that turned red, the same color as Xiao Hua's bones. After an unknown amount of time, the fire origin passed through all the 132 million small dots that made up Xiao Hua's body. These small dots all turned red. But this wasn't the end. Just as the last small dot turned red, the fire origin actually flew out of Xiao Hua's body and rushed towards the Phoenix Dharma body. At this time, the Phoenix Dharma body was already 20 zhang in size. When the fire origin entered the Phoenix Dharma body, the Phoenix Dharma body also shook violently and almost collapsed in an instant. Xiao Hua felt the same way. His entire body trembled again. Buddhist sect, Buddhist sect. Xiao Hua couldn't help but tremble. He shouted in his heart and did his best to operate the Buddhist Heart Sutra. The time taken was several times longer than before, and the fire origin had also walked through the 132 million virtual points of the Phoenix celestial body. The small dots of the Phoenix Dharma body were originally empty. After passing through the fire essence and flame crystal, they showed signs of condensing. At this time, they had completely condensed and emitted a bewitching red brilliance. This time, it should be over, right? Xiao Hua didn't have much confidence in himself. This was because he knew that the heat of the fire origin source was still in the Phoenix Dharma body. If this heat didn't disappear, then the fire origin source wouldn't be used up. Sure enough, the fire origin rushed into Xiao Hua's meridians. Xiao Hua almost cried. The pain of bones melting and flesh tearing had passed. Now it was time for the pain of meridians splitting. Helpless, Xiao Hua clenched his teeth and didn't withdraw the Phoenix Dharma body back into his body. The dragon transformation art circulated. This dragon transformation art was originally circulated automatically by Xiao Hua using the blood shadow art. At this time, under Xiao Hua's gaze, the fire origin followed the circulation of the dragon transformation art and unhurriedly tore apart Xiao Hua's originally incomparably tough meridians. Chapter 1816. Fortunately, it was night at this time. When Xiao Hua closed his eyes, the stars in the sky shrouded him as usual. The power of the stars in the sky nourished Xiao Hua's meridians like rain, causing them to once again be tenacious between tearing and healing. Of course, after being tempered by the fire origin, Xiao Hua's original meridians were completely integrated with the dragon vein, forming a single meridian. And this meridian was covered with crimson, just like a fire dragon. After an unknown period of time, all of Xiao Hua's meridians were completely tempered. However, just as the fire origin was about to pass through the hidden meridians and rush into the middle dantian that was connected to the meridians, a mysterious fluctuation suddenly appeared in Xiao Hua's space. Heavenly Tao? Xiao Hua was shocked. He clearly felt that this fluctuation had a great connection with the heavenly Tao that he would take time to comprehend every day. As soon as the fire origin touched this fluctuation, it immediately rushed into Xiao Hua's space as if it had heard its mother's call. Its speed was much faster than before. Pain. Xiao Hua felt the heat all the way up, and there was only one thought in his mind. Oh no, there's still one more. When the fire origin reached the Buddha fire, Xiao Hua suddenly remembered that he still had the empty shell of the spirit fire in the demon realm. Now that he had the fire origin, wouldn't he be able to ignite the spirit fire? In a flash, Xiao Hua quickly moved the spirit fire to the fire origin. With a tongue, the entire spirit fire was ignited, showing an extremely pure red color. The red color was so pure that it was almost transparent, and it was so beautiful that it could frighten people's souls. Great! Xiao Hua saw that the spirit fire was ignited, and he was overjoyed. He placed the spirit fire back into his body to nourish it, and then paid attention to the fire origin. Since then, he had obtained endless benefits from the fire origin source, and he was already extremely satisfied. However, based on his intuition, Xiao Hua felt that the fire origin source hadn't been consumed much. In fact, it was as if it hadn't been consumed at all. Since it was not consumed, how could Xiao Hua send the fire origin away? Could it enter the space? Oh no, little yellow. My spiritual grass. My spirit stones. Xiao Hua suddenly thought that the fire origin was so hot, as long as it entered the space, wouldn't everything turn into nothingness? What should we do? The space is filled with Xiao Hua's treasures. Xiao Hua panicked. He quickly immersed his consciousness into the space, wanting to move Goldie out of the space first. But everything was too late. When Xiao Hua's mind entered the space, the fire origin also followed the fluctuations and entered the space. Alas, Xiao Hua sighed and prepared to welcome the calamity of the space. Rumble. Sure enough, the entire space started to shake. It was a kind of shaking that was close to the shaking of mountains and earth. Although Xiao Hua's mind was formless, it was still shaking endlessly. Then, the pitch-black collapse gradually enlarged from a small dot. At the same time, it rapidly moved towards the higher part of the space. A kind of desire, a kind of joy, and a kind of peace filled the entire space. That pitch-black dot enlarged at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, it submerged Xiao Hua's mind and filled the entire space. At this moment, that joyful aura disappeared again. Another kind of wild, scorching, fearless, pursuing, and rampant will wreak havoc in the entire space. This is fire, the true fire origin. The golden threads in Xiao Hua's blood were absorbed by the fire origin, and his mind was submerged in the fire origin. It was extremely easy for him to sense the true essence of the fire origin. Previously, all the bone-tempering body condensation and red spirit fire were only the appearance of the fire origin. They were not the essence of the fire origin at all. The reason why the fire origin became an origin was because it was the beginning of fire. It contained the will of fire, the spirit of fire, and the origin of fire. This was a part of the heavenly Tao. This was the most precious part of the fire origin. If Xiaohua only obtained the previous benefits and threw away the fire origin, then it would be like picking up a sesame seed and throwing away a blade of grass. When the heavenly Tao contained within the fire origin was infinitely enlarged in the space, the fluctuations of the heavenly Tao strengthened again. The fire origin that had already turned into the heavenly Tao was sucked into the starry sky and fused with the heavenly Tao in the space. Rumble! The entire space shook again. Flames suddenly appeared, and the entire starry sky was lit up. Xiaohua's mind was in the space. He could even feel the heavenly Tao burning in the starry sky. His mind was like an ant looking up at the boundless volcano. Although there was no hope of conquering this volcano, but the volcano was deeply engraved in the mind of an ant. Xiaohua's mind was also burning. It burned without pain, and it burned with joy. After an unknown amount of time, Xiaohua's mind suddenly woke up. It seemed like he had been reborn, but it also seemed like he had just woken up. The flames that stretched across the entire sky had long disappeared. The heavenly Tao's starry sky above the space was a lot brighter. Many places that were previously blurry were now clear. The orbits between the stars were also clear. Xiaohua even had a feeling that he was in the starry sky. Great, great! At this moment, Xiaohua was already indescribably happy. He already somewhat understood the reason. It should be the heavenly Tao contained within the fire origin that had fused with the heavenly Tao's starry sky. The fire origin had absorbed the golden threads in Xiaohua's blood and brought Xiaohua's thoughts and other things into the heavenly Tao. This was far stronger than when Xiaohua only immersed his mind in the heavenly Tao to cultivate. Of course, this was only Xiaohua's own understanding. As for whether it was true or not, how could he say for sure? Mother! Little Yellow's voice rang out. Xiaohua instantly came to his senses and was overjoyed. He smiled and said, "Are you all right? Little Yellow?" "Of course I'm fine." "Mother, why did you come in? Are you taking me out to play?" Little Yellow asked. Didn't you feel anything different just now?" "Yes." As soon as Mother came in, the ground started to shake, and then the sky started to burn. After that, Mother fell asleep. How long did Mother sleep? In a while, after Little Yellow answered. Xiaohua was amused. Of course. How could Little Yellow know how long she had slept? Let's go out," Xiaohua said with a smile. Squeak, squeak. Little Silver also seemed to understand. He had just been hugging his two paws and staying next to Little Yellow, but at that moment he scurried onto Little Yellow's back. When Xiaohua's mind left the space, everything in front of him had changed again. The flames that had been hovering around him earlier had now completely disappeared into his meridians. The prairie fire mantra was still running inside his body, and his cultivation had already reached the middle stage of level 18 of the Qi refinement realm. Furthermore, the chaotic and violent spirit Qi of heaven and earth in East Ridge's Garden had already calmed down, and that scorching heat had also disappeared. Chapter 1817. It seems that the changes in the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden were caused by the origin of fire. This kind of vision must have landed in... who is this guy? Xiaohua thought, and was about to take out the token from his storage pouch. But when his hand touched the token, his heart stirred. True Samadhi fire appeared in his hand, and instantly burned Qian Yuhua's token into nothingness. Who cares who he is? I don't want to know. If I do, it'll be a knot in my heart. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes. Anyway, I just need to kill a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator. This guy must have seen the vision in the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden and thought of the so-called fire essence. He wanted to use the fire essence to break through to the Foundation establishment realm. But how did he know the origin of fire had appeared? Xiaohua thought, and his eyes turned. His figure escaped into the ground. What he carefully investigated, he found the formation Qian Yuhua had set up. Good, this guy really put in a lot of effort. Such a big formation, I don't know how long he set it up. Xiaohua was flabbergasted, and he said those aura-refining disciples weren't killed by him. He must have been afraid that people would discover his formation and kill them, so they didn't dare to come over. The token for the Garden's formation must have been taken away by him at that time. This guy actually knows how to set up formations. He must have these jade slips in his storage pouch. Xiaohua was delighted and thought, no wonder Changhuan and the others like to kill people for their belongings. Every time they kill someone, they get endless benefits. How could it not attract him to kill people? It's just that this guy is a late-stage Foundation establishment senior. He seems to be from the Heavenly Thunder Palace. This guy's death will definitely cause a lot of panic. His things should all be stored in the space. Xiaohua knew the importance of Qian Yuhua's storage pouch. He threw everything into the space and burned the storage pouch with true samadhi fire. Seeing the huge storage pouch get destroyed, Xiaohua's heart ached, but there was nothing he could do. This storage pouch couldn't be put into a storage pouch, and he couldn't, Thinking that the storage pouch couldn't be put into a storage pouch and couldn't be put into the space, Xiaohua was stunned and thought, storage pouches can't be put into storage pouches, but who said they can't be put into the space? Why am I acting up again? Don't jump to conclusions without trying. Thinking of this, Xiaohua untied a storage pouch from his waist and took out all the things he had hidden. With a thought, the storage pouch was smoothly put into the space without any changes. Ah, that's great. Xiaohua laughed, then pulled out his bag of holding to try again. The result was the same. Damn it. If I had known earlier that storage bags could be stored in the space, why would I have burned them? Looking at the ashes of the storage bag that had just been burned, Xiaohua bitterly smiled. Little Yellow and Little Silver seemed to be very fresh. The two little things flew around East Ridge's herb garden and seemed to be having a lot of fun. So Xiaohua didn't put them into his space. He sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes to cultivate. Although the origin of fire caused a great commotion, its effects were all basic. Xiaohua had entered the middle stage of the 18th layer of the aura refining realm, and its effects were still in the fire marrow flame crystal. If he wanted to increase his magic power, he still had to temper the fire marrow flame crystal. A few more days passed. Xiaohua sensed that the formation was moving, so he withdrew his command token with the intention of opening the formation. However, the command token was actually ineffective. Oh no! Xiaohua immediately understood why Qian Yuhua had burned the other command token and said that he wouldn't need it anymore. It turned out that this guy had already tampered with the formation. I'm trapped inside. Xiaohua bitterly smiled and flew out again to carefully inspect the formation. Xiaohua had already set up the Heavenly Fire formation and refined the Rabbit Talisman before, so he had some understanding of formations. Moreover, Qian Yuhua had acted in a hurry, so he only changed the key areas and left most of the formation untouched. Xiaohua referred to Qian Yuhua's formation Jade Slip as the foundation and used more than 10 days to restore the formation of East Ridge's Garden. When Xiaohua opened the formation, 2 crimson communication talismans flew in. They were both messages from Xiangyang in Myriad Thunder Valley. The first communication talisman said, Junior Brother Xiao, Junior Brother Chui has already sent back a Thunder Sound Transmission Talisman. He has already established his foundation and will return in 5 days. Master is very happy and wants us to go to the mountain gate to welcome him. The second communication talisman said, Junior Brother Xiao, Junior Brother Chui has already returned. Master is preparing to hold a celebration in Myriad Thunder Valley in 10 days. You have to come early. And last time you didn't come and didn't send a communication talisman, so Master was very angry. I said that you sent a communication talisman and were in seclusion, but Master didn't say anything. This time, Master said that no matter what kind of seclusion you are in, you have to come to the celebration. After all, this is a joyous event that hasn't happened in Myriad Thunder Valley in 100 years. You have to come early. Don't make Master angry again. Xiao Hua rubbed his hands, and the two communication talismans turned into ashes. He thought to himself, eldest senior brother is wholeheartedly protecting me. But Master, because junior brother Chui established his foundation, he doesn't care whether I'm in seclusion or not. I'm afraid he has already forgotten whether I can establish my foundation or not. What's the point of me going there? Alas, what a pity. I'm a disciple of Myriad Thunder Valley. Master has a plan, so I can't not go. Xiao Hua sighed and turned to look at Eastern Ridge. A year ago, I thought I could stay in Eastern Ridge for a while longer. Now that the origin of fire has disappeared, the fire-type spiritual energy won't be as dense as before. I'm afraid Shaoyan grass won't be able to grow in the future. However, there's still other spiritual plants. I also have puppets in my space, so it'll be easy to plant more spiritual plants. Just as he was thinking this, another thunder sound transmission talisman flew over from a distance. Xiao Hua frowned and took a look. It was the third sound transmission talisman from eldest senior brother Xiangyang. Junior brother Xiao, what the hell are you doing? Are you really going to establish your foundation? If not, hurry over. Today is junior brother Chui's celebration. Master already flew into a rage when he didn't see you this morning. It's actually today. Xiao Hua thought the sound transmission talisman had already been sent for a long time, but he didn't expect it to only be a dozen or so days ago. Thus, without thinking, he called for Little Yellow and Little Silver to enter the space. He sealed the array in Eastern Ridge's medicine garden and used the bright thunder escape to fly along a shortcut to Myriad Thunder Valley. The path Xiao Hua was flying on was the shortest, but there was also a forbidden area of the Imperial Thunder Sect on it. This was the black-gray mark on the token, and at the same time, Xiangyang had very solemnly warned him not to approach it no matter what. In the past, when Xiao Hua flew to and from Myriad Thunder Valley, he would always avoid it. Today, in order to be faster, he was taking a risk. Fortunately, when Xiao Hua flew past the forbidden area, he didn't see anything out of the ordinary. It was only after he had flown far away that the faint rumbling of thunder from the bright thunder escape reached a secret place in the forbidden area. A palm-sized thing with faint green patterns on its body trembled slightly, as if it had just been awakened from a deep sleep. Xiao Hua anxiously rushed to Myriad Thunder Valley. He didn't dare release his divine sense rashly, but when he landed in front of Helpless Cave Dwelling, there was still no divine sense. Moreover, the front of Helpless Cave Dwelling was the same as usual, and there wasn't any jubilant atmosphere at all. Xiao Hua looked at the quiet cave dwelling in puzzlement. His divine sense swept over it, but there was a restriction protecting it, so he couldn't see clearly. Strange. Xiao Hua immediately flew to Xiangyang's cave dwelling, but there was also no one there. Strange. Did something big happen? Xiao Hua suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. After all, this guy had killed several disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Could it be that someone had come to find him? But even if they found him, we still have to go to the Eastern Mountain Range? Xiao Hua was puzzled, so he quickly sent a thunder sound transmitting talisman. The sound transmitting talisman had just flown out, but it immediately flew back. It was from Xiangyang, stating his location. I'm confused. Xiao Hua slapped his forehead, and a wry smile appeared on his face. Foundation establishment cultivators all have their own cave dwellings. Since junior martial brother Chui has built his foundation, he naturally has to live in his own cave dwelling. How could the celebration still be held in master and senior martial brother's cave dwelling? Soon after, Xiao Hua flew up again, still using ordinary flying techniques, and flew towards Di Hongshan's cave dwelling. After a short while, a small cave dwelling appeared in front of Xiao Hua in a place filled with spiritual energy. That cave dwelling was exactly halfway up the mountain. There were some green pines and green cypresses on the left side, but there were even more green bamboos as thick as a bowl. Wherever the wind passed, there was a rustling sound, like the soft whispers of waves. Good. I didn't expect junior martial brother Chui to be such an elegant person. Xiao Hua looked at the cave dwelling, which had a completely different style from Xiang Yang's cave dwelling, and couldn't help but feel surprised. At this time, on the cave stone wall, there were actually several large, bright red lanterns hanging. A long red cloth wrapped around the entrance of the cave dwelling, just like a secular family's wedding ceremony. Not far from the entrance, that azure ape was also looking left and right, bored to death. This, Xiao Hua looked at Di Hongshan's cave dwelling, and in his mind, Qian Diheng unconsciously appeared. In his mind, Qian Diheng was also wearing red and green clothes, with an extremely awkward appearance. Haha, Xiao Hua thought of this, and couldn't help but laugh out loud. Umph, a sneer sounded in Xiao Hua's ear. It was Xiang Yang's extremely angry voice. Xiao Hua was startled and hurriedly descended from midair. At the same time, Xiang Yang's familiar divine sense swept over. Junior Martial Brother Xiao, seeing Xiang Yang rush out, he hurriedly blinked at Xiao Hua and said, "How was your seclusion this time? Did you make any progress?" "Progress?" Xiao Hua said in his heart. "What progress? I just casually used the fire origin to temper my bones, and while I was at it, I also killed a late Foundation establishment old bastard." But the expression on his face was just as Xiang Yang thought, somewhat gloomy, and he sighed. "It's a long story, Senior Martial Brother." Hee, since it's a long story, then don't say it. Xiang Yang was secretly happy in his heart, and hurriedly blocked Xiao Hua's words, saying with a smile, "Foundation establishment isn't a simple matter. Earlier, I already told you the things you need to pay attention to clearly. Among them, the most important thing is to not be impatient. If you can go into seclusion, then go into seclusion. If you can travel, then travel. This is the way to relax. And now my 10,000 Thunder Valley has another junior martial brother who has reached Foundation establishment. This is a big matter for 10,000 Thunder Valley, so your seclusion can be put aside first. Let him come in." A helpless voice sounded beside the two people's ears. "Yes, this disciple understands." Xiang Yang blinked his eyes and hurriedly replied. Chapter 1818. When Xiao Hua followed Xiang Yang into Di Hongshan's Immortal's Cave, he realized that the Immortal's Cave wasn't big, but the inside of the Immortal's Cave was huge. Xiao Hua couldn't see the inside of the Immortal's Cave, but there were several jade chairs in the hall. Helpless, Zhua Mingwei and a few other cultivators were sitting on them. Beside them were some jade tables with some spirit fruits and spirit wine on them. On both sides of the hall, there were also some cultivators sitting on 2 rows of jade chairs. They were Di Hongshan's group. At this moment, Di Hongshan was whispering to these cultivators, laughing from time to time. He didn't seem to care about Xiao Hua's arrival. Beside Di Hongshan and the rest, there were also some fragrant spiritual herbs placed near the jade table. There were even some gorgeous flowers decorating the surroundings of the hall. "Motherfucker, he really does have some background." Xiao Hua sighed as he looked at the scene. "Why did you only come now?" Xiang Yang, who was sitting on one of the chairs in the hall, asked coldly. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. "Disciple is untalented. I was in seclusion during this time. The summoning talisman sent by eldest senior brother, Even if you were in seclusion, you still had to receive the summoning talisman. If I sent you a message, would you dare not come?" Helpless asked again. Disciple, not waiting for Xiao Hua to finish, Helpless cut him off. "Since you went out for several years and went through life and death situations, you still haven't built your foundation. You should stop and think about why you can't build your foundation. How can someone like you who only knows how to cultivate in seclusion succeed? Your junior brother Chui has built his foundation and returned to the mountain. Such a big event. All the disciples of my myriad Thunder Valley went to welcome him. Only you weren't there. Moreover, your junior brother Chui's foundation building ceremony is so important. Only your eldest senior brother and eldest senior brother's wife are busy. Do you think it's appropriate?" Xiao Hua smiled bitterly and bowed. Disciple obviously knows it's inappropriate, but Disciple really didn't know that junior brother Chui built his foundation so quickly. You think everyone is like you. Helpless sneered. This is your senior brother who failed to build his foundation? He looks like he's in such a sorry state. Not only is his hair gone, even his eyebrows are gone. Looks like an unlucky guy. He's not even as good as your eldest senior brother. He's also an aura refiner. You're also an aura refiner. What do you have to say about him? Tis TSK. I am a descendant of a cultivation family. How can I not build my foundation? It was just that the time wasn't right yet. Compared to those rogue cultivators who have cultivated for more than 10 years and still haven't built their foundation, they are more than 100 times stronger. The several disciples beside Di Hongshan were obviously on good terms with him, and they spoke without any scruples. Although they spoke in a low voice, everyone in the Immortals' Cave was a cultivator, so who couldn't hear them? When these words fell into Xiao Hua's ears, it did not mean much. However, when Xiao Hua heard these words, his expression had already become somewhat unnatural. Helplessness. Is this the disciple you accepted last time? The old man sitting in the middle beside Helplessness said with a smile. That's right, it's him. Helplessness said, almost gnashing his teeth. The one I chose that day was Wang Yunxiao, but Jinyue beat me to it and took him as his disciple. I had no choice but to accept him. Yes, Xiao Hua is also not bad. I heard that he suppressed the disciples of the Cleansing Flower sect at the Feather Immortal Assembly and brought a strange treasure back to the Imperial Thunder sect. The old man said with a smile. What's the use of having? Helplessness smiled apologetically. When he came back, he showed signs of building his foundation. I even specially sent Xiang Yang to protect him. However, I heard from Xiang Yang that this guy's foundation building momentum was not small, but in the end, he just couldn't complete it. I don't need to say the reason, but senior brother also knows. It's definitely because his cultivation method is not thorough, and he places too much importance on external objects. Yes, the old man nodded. We know about these things, and the disciples of the immortal clans also know. As a rogue cultivator, Xiao Hua probably doesn't know. You should teach him more. I naturally said that. Helplessness smiled apologetically. Unfortunately, this guy never listens. Then, he turned to Xiao Hua and said, Xiao Hua, why haven't you come to greet Senior Jean Mo yet? Seeing Helplessness's respectful appearance and also calling him senior brother, Xiao Hua immediately knew that this Jean Mo was a foundation-building senior of the Thunder-Shaking Palace. He hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. Junior Xiao Hua greets Martial Uncle Jean Mo. Yes, stand up. Jean Mo waved his hand and said very kindly, I'm the same as you. I've also been at the peak of the foundation-building realm for more than 100 years, but I still can't condense my gold core. I know you, and I know the anxiety in your heart. You want to build your foundation at all costs. However, cultivating the Tao is not only about diligence, but also about luck. Without luck, even if you cultivate for 1,000 years, it'll be in vain. Martial Uncle Jean is indeed amiable and approachable. Xiao Hua didn't say anything, but Di Hongshan said with a smile first, I've often heard Ancestor talk about Martial Uncle's graceful bearing, but I still don't believe it. A peak foundation-building cultivator is exactly what we juniors admire the most. Now it seems that Ancestor's description is still inferior to seniors by a lot. It really makes me inconceivable. Ancestor, Xiao Hua instantly understood. This Jean Mo probably had an old relationship with the Chui family of Kuan Yu. Today, he specially came to support Di Hongshan. No wonder he never heard Xiang Yang mention that he had a particularly good martial uncle in the Thunder-Shaking Palace. Alas, speaking of your ancestor, that was a matter of more than 100 years ago. Of course, I met your ancestor in one of the 10 great danger zones, Weeping Moon Abyss, and even fought with him. Yes, my Chui family's ancient records still record that battle. Di Hongshan said with a smile. They say that friendship grows after a fight. However, Ancestor said that if it weren't for Martial Uncle's broad-mindedness, he probably wouldn't have been able to return. Ha ha ha, your ancestor overpraises me. Thinking about how he was actually recorded in the ancient records of the Chui family of Kuan Yu and praised by hundreds of generations, Jean himself was a peak foundation establishment cultivator. He couldn't help but beam with joy. It's all the preposterous actions of youth and vigor. Unexpectedly, this old man really can't accept it. Soon after, Zhenmo's voice naturally turned to Di Hongshan. He threw Xiao Hua to the side, and helplessness whispered to a cultivator next to him. That cultivator sat next to Zhenmo and was also a guest. He was a cultivator with the same cultivation as helplessness. Seeing that he was being ignored, Xiaohua walked in front of Zhuo Minghui and Yin Qinglian. After bowing and greeting, he stood to the side and quietly listened to their conversation. After a moment, he heard Zhuo Minghui transmit her voice. Xiaohua, today is the opening day of the Hongshan Palace. You have to take out a gift. If you haven't prepared one, I have one here. Find an excuse and leave. I will give it to you. Oh, there's no need. Master's wife, Disciple has prepared one here. In a moment, Disciple will give it to Junior Marshal Brother Chui. Let him grow some face. Xiaohua was stunned at first, then nodded. Chapter 1819. That's good, Zhuo Minghui said with a smile. My myriad Thunder Valley has few disciples, and there's usually no celebration. Your master also doesn't have any good friends. Today, there's finally some excitement. Although they're all Hongshan's old friends, it can still be considered lively. If you have something good to take out, it can also give your master face. There were many things in Xiao Hua's space, and it wasn't like there weren't any that were suitable for early-stage foundation establishment. Just as Xiao Hua was pondering, he heard an awe-inspiring voice again. Hongshan, you've already reached foundation establishment, but your master still has disciples who haven't reached foundation establishment yet. You can guide them and share your experience of foundation establishment with others. Yes, this junior understands, Di Hongshan said with a face full of smiles. Hearing this, Xiao Hua stepped forward and said with a smile, Junior Marshal Brother Chui, congratulations on reaching foundation establishment. I have prepared a gift here. Please kindly accept it. Saying this, Xiao Hua was about to take out an item from his space that was effective for early-stage foundation establishment and could give Di Hongshan a lot of face. Unexpectedly, Di Hongshan waved his hand and said with a smile, Xiao Hua, what did you call I just now? What? Xiao Hua's hand froze, and he subconsciously said, What? Junior Marshal Brother Chui? I called you. Di Hongshan's face was full of pride as he said with a smile, Xiao Hua, this form of address is naturally fine before this humble Taoist left the sect to gain experience. But now that this humble Taoist has succeeded in building his foundation, if we follow the rules of my Xiaoyu continent, you have to address this humble Taoist as senior. Of course, in my Imperial Thunder sect, I also know the rules of the sect. You and I are both master's disciples, so we can call each other senior and junior martial brothers. However, do you think you can call I junior martial brother Chui? This. Xiao Hua's face flushed red. He had always called Xiang Yang eldest senior martial brother, and at the same time, he also knew that foundation establishment cultivators were seniors, but he never thought that Di Hongshan would make things difficult for him on the spot. Xiao Hua glanced at Di Hongshan. There was no expression on Di Hongshan's face, as if what Di Hongshan said was a matter of course. Then he looked at Xiang Yang. Xiang Yang frowned slightly, as if he was unhappy. As for the several cultivators beside Di Hongshan, they had smiles on their faces as they watched with interest. What about you? This young master has just killed a late foundation establishment, Heavenly Thunder Palace cultivator. You are but a mere early foundation establishment, Heavenly Thunder Palace cultivator, and you actually want this young master to call you senior brother? Extreme disgust arose in Xiao Hua's heart. Seeing Xiao Hua's distressed state, he helplessly said, Xiao Hua, in the cultivation world, those who reach the top are the teachers. Since Hongshan reached the foundation building stage before you, he's a senior. You can't avoid this title. Since Hongshan doesn't want you to call him senior, you can just call him senior. No one else can interfere. Haha, junior brother, Xiao doesn't seem to be able to say the word senior brother. A foundation establishment cultivator next to Di Hongshan smiled and said, I have an idea. If Junior Marshal Brother Xiao and Junior Marshal Brother Chui exchange pointers, Junior Marshal Brother Xiao only needs to defeat Junior Marshal Brother Chui, and he won't be called Senior Marshal Brother anymore. Yuan Ta, what are you talking about? The late Foundation establishment Heavenly Thunder Palace cultivator next to him scolded, "How can you casually exchange pointers with your fellow disciples?" Haha, Master, this disciple is just joking. The early Foundation establishment Heavenly Thunder Palace cultivator immediately smiled apologetically and said, Junior Marshal Brother Hongshen just said that Junior Marshal Brother Xiao defeated all the heroes in the Feather Immortal Assembly and won the heart of Fairy Hong Xia from the Washing Flower sect. We are all envious, and a few of us still want to exchange pointers with Junior Marshal Brother Xiao. That's right, Senior Marshal Brother Xiao. This little brother has long admired your ability. Why don't you give this little brother a chance? A peak 12th layer Qi refining disciple next to Di Hongshen said with a smile. Xiao Hua's gaze was calm. He looked straight at that disciple and said expressionlessly, I never exchange pointers with fellow disciples. If Junior Marshal Brother is interested, you and I can go to the Thunder Arena. Thunder Arena? Hearing this, that disciple's expression changed slightly. Little brat, he helplessly scolded. Your Senior Marshal Brother Chui is having a good day. Why are you mentioning the Thunder Arena? Why aren't you apologizing to your Senior Marshal Brother? Ha ha, Master, there's no need. Di Hongshen smiled with a magnanimous expression. He turned his head and said to Xiao Hua, Junior Marshal Brother Xiao, what have I never seen before? I also don't want any gifts from you. You just have to call me Senior Marshal Brother Chui. And that's that. Damn it, you're looking for a beating. Xiao Hua sneered in his heart. He had already thought it through. If he didn't beat this so-called Quan Yu Chui family into a pig's head, he would never give up. But just as he was about to open his mouth and invite a battle, a tyrannical divine sense swept in from outside the cave. Then a valiant voice sounded, Is Junior Marshal Nephew Helplessness here? Ooh, Helplessness was shocked. He glanced at Jean Mo and the three late Foundation establishment Heavenly Thunder Palace cultivators hurriedly stood up. All three of their faces were filled with panic. It was obvious that the person who came was a golden core cultivator. Who could it be? Helplessness thought as he flew out of the cave. He simply didn't think about inviting a golden core senior to participate in Di Hongshen's Foundation establishment ceremony. Then, he looked at Di Hongshen and saw that he was also at a loss. Obviously, he also didn't invite him. Jean Mo, Helplessness, and the other three late Foundation establishment Heavenly Thunder Palace cultivators stood in the front. Xiang Yang, Yin Qinglian, and the others stood behind them. Behind them were Di Hongshen and the other early Foundation establishment disciples. Xiao Hua and two other aura refining disciples stood at the back. After waiting for a while, they saw four cultivators flying in the air. The person in the front was abnormally tall, and his attire was also strange. It wasn't an ordinary Taoist robe. Instead, his arms and legs were bare. The muscles on his arms and legs bulged, making him look very robust. Moreover, that cultivator's face was also fierce. He had broom-like eyebrows, bell-like eyes, and a cold gaze. At first glance, one could tell he wasn't someone easy to get along with. Junior Helplessness greets Marshal Uncle Jean Jie. When Helplessness saw that person's face, he hastily took a step forward and bowed in greeting. However, his heart was tense. Last time, when Xiao Hua went out to gain experience, he taught Zhen Yihong a lesson. After that, he also wondered why Zhen Yihong, a Foundation establishment senior, made things difficult for Xiao Hua. When he asked Xiang Yang about it, Xiang Yang naturally told Helplessness everything he knew. At that time, Helplessness just laughed it off, thinking that Zhen Yihong might have been entrusted by Zhen Qikue to teach Xiao Hua a lesson. Even when he learned that Zhen Ming also died in Mingxi, he still didn't associate Swallow Thunder Ridge with Xiao Hua. Moreover, he taught Zhen Yihong a lesson because Zhen Yihong taught Xiao Hua a lesson first. Helplessness never thought Zhen Jie would personally come forward. Zhen Mo and the others also stepped forward to greet him. Everyone was confused, but Xiao Hua's heart was clear. He didn't know Zhen Jie, but he knew two of the three people behind Jin Jie. One was Zhang Jie's fourth disciple, Zhen Weisheng, and the other was Zhang Jie's youngest disciple, Zhen Qikui. However, Zhen Qikui was the same as him. He also hadn't built his foundation. And wait a moment. Zhen Jie waved his hand and helped helplessness and the others up. He said with a smile, "This old man heard that martial nephew Helplessness's disciple actually built his foundation. This old man's youngest disciple hasn't built his foundation for many years. This old man brought him here to learn a thing or two from your disciple." I don't dare. Helplessness's heart relaxed, and he hurriedly turned his head and said, "Hongshan, come and greet Grandmaster Zhen Jie." Yes, disciple Cui Hongshan greets Grandmaster Zhen Jie. Cui Hongshan hurriedly walked over and bowed. Not bad," Zhen Jie said with a smile. "You're indeed a dragon among men. Martial nephew Helplessness is so lucky." I don't dare. Helplessness's face bloomed with a smile. "Martial Uncle Zhen, please come inside to talk." "Good." Zhen Jie flicked his sleeve, turned his head, and said to Zhen Weisheng, "Weisheng, give the gift to Hongshan, and then greet the other junior brothers." Then he stepped forward. "Yes, master," Zhen Weisheng replied respectfully, and then took out a jade bottle from his storage bag and handed it to Cui Hongshan. He said, "I am Zhen Weisheng, the fourth disciple of my master. Junior brother Cui, this is the Elaine pill, which is used to condense true essence. It is also a rare item in my Swallow Thunder Ridge. I hope you can use this pill to enter the Gold Core stage as soon as possible." Cui Hongshan's face showed joy, and he reached out to take it. He hurriedly said, "Thank you, senior brother Weisheng. This pill is very precious. I am really flattered. This is a gift from Swallow Thunder Ridge. Please accept it," Zhen Weisheng said, and pointed his finger. "This is I's youngest junior brother, Zhen Qikui. I hope you can give me some advice." "I don't dare." Senior fellow apprentice Chi Kuei's reputation has already resounded like thunder when I joined the thunder-controlling sect. I was just lucky enough to leave first. Maybe senior fellow apprentice Chi Kuei will reach the Zhuji realm tomorrow. I can't give you any advice. Zhen Qikui's face was not very good at first, but after hearing Cui Hongshan's words, he showed a smile and cupped his hands. "You are indeed a disciple of an aristocratic family. You have an outstanding demeanor. I will have to keep in touch with you in the future." I can't ask for more." Cui Hongshan smiled and returned the salute. "By the way, I have a small personal request," Zhen Weisheng said in a low voice. He pointed at the last Qi refining disciple and said with a smile, "This is my disciple, Yin Xiefeng. He is also about to enter the foundation establishment stage. I brought him here secretly, so you can't hide it from me." "I don't dare." Cui Hongshan's face was very bright, as if he was really the main character of today's Thunder Valley. Disciple Yin Xiefeng greets Martial Uncle Cui. Yin Xiefeng also stepped forward and bowed. "Martial nephew Yin, you must be a disciple of the Yin family in Minghe." Cui Hongshan quickly helped him up and said with a smile, "I think you look familiar." Martial Uncle Cui is really observant. "I entered the Imperial Thunder sect 3 years earlier than you. I saw you when you entered the sect." Yin Xiefeng smiled apologetically. "I see." Cui Hongshan nodded and cupped his hands. "Let's go inside and talk. Please." Xiang Yang and Yin Xinglian were standing in front of Cui Hongshan, but because of Zhen Jie's call, Cui Hongshan walked in front of Xiang Yang. At this time, Zhen Weisheng pulled Cui Hongshan and talked to him, completely ignoring Xiang Yang and the others. When Cui Hongshan invited them into the cave, Zhen Weisheng raised his head and cupped his hands. "Junior martial brother Xiang Yang is also here. I haven't seen you for a long time. You have reached the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage. Congratulations." He said congratulations, but there was no congratulation in his tone. It was almost like he was mocking him. Chapter 1820. Xiang Yang was also used to hearing this. He said with a smile, I don't dare. I am too far away from senior brother Jean. I don't dare to be proud of my little cultivation. This is Xiao Hua, who shocked the Feather Immortal Assembly a long time ago. Zhen Weisheng looked at Xiao Hua and said, Xiao Hua didn't feel any burden when facing Zhen Weisheng. He bowed and said, Junior is Xiao Hua. Greetings, Senior Zhen. Get up. Zhen Weisheng flicked his sleeve. I didn't expect that the outstanding person of the Feather Immortal Assembly back then still hasn't built his foundation. The heavens are really unfair. I'm afraid I'm not the only one who complains about the heavens being unfair, right? Xiao Hua glanced at Zhen Qikue. Zhen Qikue, who was originally in a slightly relaxed mood, was immediately enraged. He shouted, Who are you talking about? Xiao Hua scratched his head and said curiously, Could it be that I'm the only one who can't build my foundation after refining qi for several years? Senior brother, did you also complain about it back then? Xiang Yang was caught off guard and said hesitantly, The heavens have its own reasons. I don't seem to have complained about the heavens being unfair, right? Please, let's talk inside the cave. Cui Hongshan hurriedly said, not allowing Xiang Yang and Xiao Hua to say another word. Inside the cave, Zhang Jie was obviously sitting in the seat of honor. Everyone was already talking about something. Looking at the careful appearance of Zhen Mo and the others, they obviously didn't dare to offend this Gold Core senior. Cui Hongshan asked Zhen Weisheng and the others to take a seat and glanced at Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua was somewhat baffled. When Xiang Yang went over and took out some spirit tea and other things, Xiao Hua suddenly understood. No, this matter seems to be done by me. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua didn't have this kind of awareness at all. He didn't even bother to take half a step forward. Seeing Xiang Yang serving the spirit tea and other things, Cui Hongshan didn't say anything. He just whispered to Zhen Weisheng. Zhen Qikue didn't even care about Cui Hongshan. It didn't seem like he was here to ask for advice. On the contrary, Yin Xiefeng very cooperatively asked a few questions. However, it was no different for not asking anything. Seeing that the situation was very strange, Xiao Hua's mind was in chaos. After thinking about it for a while, he prepared to scold Wei Sheng. However, Xiao Hua was still wrong. Zhang Jie spoke up. Nephew, I heard that last time when Xiao Hua left the mountain to gain experience, this old man's disciple actually made things difficult for Xiao Hua. If it wasn't for nephew taking action and teaching him a lesson in this old man's place, the other lightning palaces would have laughed at our Thunderclap Ridge, causing our Thunderclap Ridge to have a bad reputation of bullying the weak. How could that be? Junior brother Ehong was just joking with Xiao Hua. Junior was just telling them not to joke too much. Helplessly, he hurriedly said, Martial nephew helplessness is still the most sensible. Zhang Jie smiled and said, However, this old man has only recently learned about this matter. Today, I have come here for a few things. One of them is to make Zhou Kuei apologize to Xiao Hua. Previously, Zhou Kuei was insensible and made such a big fuss. Look at what Martial Uncle is saying. We are all disciples of Thunderclap Palace. What's wrong with ordinary jokes? Helplessness said again. This junior has also asked Xiang Yang. It's not a big deal. That won't do. A mistake is a mistake. Zhou Kuei, come forward and apologize to Xiao Hua. Zhen Jie flicked his sleeve and said, Yes, master. Zhen Qikue turned around and bowed to Xiao Hua. Junior martial brother Xiao, I was too narrow-minded and caused trouble for you. In addition, senior martial brother Zhen Yihong was also instigated by me. I made you feel wronged. Junior martial brother Zhen Yihong is here to apologize. Seeing Zhen Zhou Kuei like this, how could Xiao Hua say this? Without waiting for Xiao Hua to think more, Zhang Jie scolded. Xiao Hua, quickly return the courtesy. Yes, master. Xiao Hua hurriedly replied and returned the courtesy. It's not all senior brother Zhen's fault. This junior brother also didn't think carefully. Very good. Zhang Jie laughed. After Zhen Zhou Kuei sat down, his face gradually became cold again. He said word by word, Martial nephew helplessness. As you said just now, We are all disciples of Thunderclap Palace. Ordinary disputes are nothing. Even if it's a big matter, we can put it in front of the elders of the sect and reason it out. Yes, it's all right. Helplessness said with a strange expression. Even if it's a big matter, my Thunderclap Palace has Thunderming Immortal, and my Imperial Thunder Sect has Sect Leader. Jean Jie became louder and louder. There must be a way to solve it. You can't casually kill your fellow disciples. You can't treat the lives of your fellow disciples as nothing, right? Helplessness looked at Jean Jie with a strange expression. He really didn't understand what he was talking about. He stole a glance at Jean Mo and another fellow disciple. They all had a strange expression on their faces. Helplessness could only smile apologetically and say, Martial Uncle Jean is right. We are all fellow disciples. Whenever there is a dispute, we must find a proper way to solve it. Junior really admires Martial Uncle Jean Jie for bringing a disciple like you. Since Senior Martial Brother Helplessness is so magnanimous, then Junior Martial Brother Helplessness has a question for you. Zhen Weisheng said with a smile. In the vicinity of Eastern Mountain Range, has Senior Martial Brother Helplessness seen my 15th Junior Martial Brother Zhen Ming and 17th Junior Martial Brother Zhen Hao? Junior Martial Brother Zhen Ming? Junior Martial Brother Zhen Hao? Eastern Mountain Range? Helplessness suddenly understood that Zhen Jie didn't come just to congratulate Shui Hongshen on building his foundation. He also brought Eastern Mountain Range into the picture. Helplessness couldn't help but glance at Xiaohua. At this moment, Xiaohua, this guy, was looking down at his nose and down at his heart. He was extremely well-behaved and looked like a genuine aura-refining disciple. Helplessness calculated the time Zhen Weisheng mentioned, then said with a smile, On the day Senior Martial Brother Weisheng mentioned, I was on duty in Myriad Thunder Valley. I basically didn't go to the vicinity of Eastern Mountain Range. However, Xiaohua was on duty in Eastern Mountain Range's medicinal garden. I wonder what the two Junior Martial Brothers went to Eastern Mountain Range for? The two of them just went on a business trip near Eastern Mountain Range. It wasn't Eastern Mountain Range's medicinal garden. Zhen Weisheng chuckled and said, However, Senior Martial Brother Helplessness said you were on duty in Myriad Thunder Valley. Do you have any proof? Proof? Helplessness smiled and said, Being on duty is my duty. Out of 10 days, I was in Myriad Thunder Valley for 9.5 days. I also don't have the so-called proof. Zhen Jie sneered. Martial nephew, are you telling the truth? In an instant, Zhen Jie released his spiritual aura and completely covered Helplessness. Helplessness didn't dare to resist. His face was deathly pale and bean-sized drops of sweat fell from his temples. At the side, Zhu Minghui was shocked. She hurriedly said, Martial Uncle Zhen Jie. It's nothing. I just wanted to see if Martial Nephew Helplessness was telling the truth. Zhen Jie said with a smile. His spiritual aura immediately disappeared. Junior can swear a blood oath that I absolutely didn't see the two Junior Martial Brothers on that day. Helplessness's lips trembled slightly as he said in a low voice, Swear a blood oath. Zhen Jie said coldly. Helplessness was slightly stunned. He just wanted to prove his innocence. He really didn't expect that he would have to swear a blood oath. Being forced to swear a blood oath in his own disciple's immortal's cave by someone else, even if it was his martial uncle from the same sect, this kind of humiliation was unbearable. Martial Uncle Zhen. I wonder if the two Junior Martial Brothers. Zhuo Minghui's expression also changed slightly. She asked very puzzledly. Chapter 1821. My two junior brothers were killed near the Eastern Ridge. Zhen Weisheng said coldly. Everyone was stunned. Xiaohua also opened his eyes in shock and exclaimed, Martial Uncle, where is it in the Eastern Ridge? I don't know either. Zhen Weisheng snorted coldly. If you know, you can tell me. Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand. Kid, I've always been in the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden and didn't even dare to come out of the formation. How would I know where it is? Forget it. Seeing that it was related to the lives of Zhen Jie's two disciples, Helpless could only smile bitterly and swear a blood oath in a low voice. Ha ha! Zhen Jie's expression eased, and he laughed. Martial nephew helpless. I can't do anything about it. My two disciples disappeared without trace. Even you would be worried, right? I hope you can understand my feelings. Helpless could only smile bitterly and express his understanding. All right, since this has nothing to do with martial nephew helpless, I still have one more thing. Zhen Jie raised his head and looked at Xiaohua. Xiaohua's heart trembled. He bowed and said, Senior, what is it? Show me your storage pouch. Yes, Xiaohua took off his storage pouch without hesitation. Zhen Jie waved his hand. Zhen Weixing took it and opened it to take a look. Then, he handed it to Xiaohua and said curiously, I heard that you obtained a treasure in the Feather Immortal Assembly. Why isn't it in your storage pouch? Yes, Martial Uncle knows. That thing is extraordinarily heavy and can't be placed in a storage pouch. I've already lost a few storage pouches because of it. My heart aches so much that I threw it in the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden long ago. If Martial Uncle wants to see it, I can show it to you, Xiaohua said seriously. No need. Zhen Weixing waved his hand and said, I'm sure you know that when you were training in the Netherworld, you met my sixth disciple, Zhendong. I came here personally because I want to know, who was the Foundation establishment cultivator who killed Zhendong? Since this person could kill Zhan Ming and hundreds of disciples from other sects, why did he leave you alive? You and that cultivator, what kind of deal did you make? Xiaohua's mind spun rapidly. Soon after, he raised his eyebrows and said, I'll let Grandmaster Zhen know. On that day, Junior was coerced by that cultivator to swear a hard oath. I can't reveal half a word about that cultivator. I hope Grandmaster can forgive me. Not waiting for Zhen Jie to speak, Zhen Wei snorted coldly and released the pressure of a foundation building stage cultivator, suppressing Xiaohua completely. He sneered, How can my junior brother die in vain? Even if I have to ascend to the 9 heavens or descend to the 9 underworlds, this old man will still capture that cultivator for revenge. My master won't lower himself to your level, but this old man doesn't care about face. Today, whether you say it or not, you have to say it. Seeing that Zhen Jie and Zhen Weixing were putting on a show and interrogating him, Xiaohua sneered in his heart. This Swallow Thunder Ridge is really too overbearing. They clearly know that I've already made a hard oath, yet they still insist on interrogating me. They have long stopped treating me as a fellow disciple. Presumably, they also went to look for Sun Shu and Qian Dian. Firstly, the two of them didn't know the truth. Secondly, they also had backers. If they didn't say anything, then they wouldn't say anything. Xiaohua couldn't compare to the two of them. At the same time, he also understood why Mo Qingyuan let the 4 of them go so easily after casually making a hard oath. It turned out that Mo Qingyuan simply wasn't afraid of what the other 3 would say. As for Xiaohua, who knew the inside story, he didn't have enough confidence to capture him, so he could only give him a warning. Grandmaster Zhen, Helpless, and Zhuo Minghui both pleaded. Since Xiaohua has already made a hard oath, if he goes against it, I'm afraid it'll be detrimental to his cultivation. Alas, this old man doesn't care. Zhen Jie casually shook his head. But the relationship between those two is very deep. This old man, I'm afraid I can't interfere too much, right? What's there to worry about an aura-refining cultivator's hard oath? Zhen Qikue sneered and said, Moreover, Xiaohua hasn't built his foundation for so many years. How could he still have any hope of building his foundation? His cultivation can be considered to have come to an end today. It'd be better for him to tell us about that cultivator situation and let our Swallow Thunder Ridge owe him a favor. That's right, Junior Martial Brother Xiao. You're always trying to side with him. Now that Grandmaster Zhen has personally come here, such a big favor, if you don't say it now, when will you? Cui Hongshan glanced at Helpless and echoed. As for Helpless and Zhuo Minghui, although they didn't say anything, their expressions and gazes clearly showed that they had also somewhat given up. Wei Sheng, don't scare Xiaohua. Zhen Qikue said in an extremely amiable tone, Xiaohua, you can rest assured and speak. Our Swallow Thunder Ridge will repay you generously. Moreover, from now on, you'll stay in Myriad Thunder Valley. If that cultivator comes to seek revenge, this old man will be the first to not let him off. However, no matter how one looked at it, his fierce expression was still sinister. When Zhenwei heard this, he withdrew his spiritual aura and glared fiercely at Xiaohua. However, Xiaohua just stood there calmly. His gaze shifted back and forth between Zhen Jie, Zhen Mo, helpless, and the others, not saying a single word. After waiting for a while, Xiaohua shook his head and said, "This junior has already made a hard oath. Forgive this junior for not being able to speak clearly." Zhen Jie's gaze flashed, and he stared at Xiaohua like a knife. Although he didn't release his spiritual aura, the entire Immortal's Cave was already filled with a kind of silent oppression. What should I do? Xiaohua knew that Helpless was powerless to protect him and could only find a way out himself. He unconsciously glanced outside the Immortal's Cave. However, he didn't know what kind of divine ability a golden core cultivator could have to block his bright thunder escape. And once his strength was exposed, the matter of Zhang and Zhen Hao would inevitably fall on his head. He feared that he couldn't stay in the Imperial Thunder sect any longer. Is Martial Nephew Helpless here? Just as he was extremely nervous, another crisp voice came from outside the Immortal's Cave. At the same time, a divine sense swept through the cave. The restrictions inside the Immortal's Cave didn't seem to have any effect. Hearing someone call him Martial Nephew again, Helpless felt even more helpless. His mouth was filled with endless bitterness. No one had ever come to Myriad Thunder Valley. He had always been tyrannical. Unexpectedly, today, when he wanted to borrow the strength of his disciples' foundation building to gain face, he was repeatedly called Martial Nephew. Moreover, he was forced to make a hard oath. Who knew? Who would come again? What was going on? Zhen Jie's face also showed a trace of surprise, but then he suddenly understood. Without getting up, he flicked his sleeve and ordered, "Wei Sheng, go greet Martial Uncle Sun Ming on behalf of Master." Sun Ming? When Xiaohua heard this, he was overjoyed. If Sun Ming came, how could Sun Shu be far away? He probably didn't need to be a stray dog anymore. Everyone also heard this. Helpless knew the relationship between Xiaohua and Shui. They were also secretly happy, knowing that nothing bad would happen. Thus, they hurriedly got up and followed Zhuo Minghui, Zhen Mo, and the others to greet Sun Ming. Xiaohua himself was very clear, standing in place without moving. Not long after, Sun Ming entered the Immortal's Cave under the escort of Helpless and the others. Behind Helpless and the others, Sun Shu and Shui also followed. The two of them clearly saw Zhen Weisheng and guessed the reason for this matter. Two pairs of beautiful eyes looked at Xiaohua with concern. Sun Shu also slightly nodded at Xiaohua, obviously to let Xiaohua be at ease. Chapter 1822. Junior Sister Sun, how come you have time to come to my Thunder Shock Palace today? Zhen Jie stood up and cupped his hands. Since Senior Brother Zhen can come to 10,000 Thunder Valley, what's so strange about little sister coming to take a look? Sun Ming returned the greeting and said with a smile. Although she was slightly younger than Zhen Jie, her cultivation was not weak. Moreover, Deafening Thunder Palace and Sun Thunder Palace had similar statuses. Sun Ming did not care that Zhen Jie said she came to Deafening Thunder Palace and immediately retorted, "I came to ask my Thunder Shock Palace disciple if there is any news of Ai's disciple being killed." Zhen Jie, of course, will not show weakness and keep mentioning Thunder Shock Palace. Sun Ming smiled faintly and casually sat beside Zhen Jie. She pointed and said, "Just in time, I also have something to ask Xiaohua." Junior Sister Sun, is this intentional? Zhen Jie's face changed. Sun Ming rolled her eyes at him. Am I so bored? Moreover, I also did not know that Senior Brother Zhen is here. Ai's matter is not over yet. After I ask, Zhen Jie said, unhappily. You ask, I am not in a hurry. Sun Ming interrupted Zhen Jie and said, Good. Zhen Jie raised his head again and sneered. Xiaohua, You really don't want to give this old man face? Xiao Hua quickly bowed and said, Ancestor Jin's face is naturally bigger than the heavens, but this junior really does not dare to not give face to the heavens, does not dare to not give face to the heart's oath. Ha! Jinjie slapped the jade chair and stood up. He finally released the aura of a golden core cultivator and said with a grin, Although you are a junior, if you don't know how to respect, then this old man will also. However, at this moment, Sun Ming also released her aura and blocked Jinjie's aura to the side. What? Junior sister Sun wants to interfere with my Thundershock Palace's affairs? Jinjie said with a grin. So it's your Thundershock Palace's internal affairs. Sun Ming was very surprised. She deliberately covered her mouth and said, Looks like senior brother Jun took Thunder Ming's order. This. Jinjie was somewhat embarrassed. Let little sister see the order. Little sister definitely won't take half a step out of line. Sun Ming said in all seriousness. Jinjie's eyes constricted, and he said coldly, Junior apprentice sister Sun, are you not planning to give eye face? It's nothing, it's nothing. Sun Ming hurriedly waved her hand and said, I also have an extremely important matter to ask Xiao Hua. Senior brother Jin treated Xiao Hua like this. How can I still ask about my matter? Good. Jinjie said good 3 times in a row, then waved his hand and said, Then this old man will give you face and let you ask first. This is not good. Sun Ming also waved her hand and said, Xiao Hua is your Thunderquake Palace's disciple. Moreover, senior apprentice brother Jin also came first. Regardless of sentiment or reason, it should be senior apprentice brother Jin who asked first. How could little sister dare to walk in front of senior apprentice brother? Jinjie was very embarrassed and angry. It was a bit difficult to deal with. Oh, Martial Uncle Jun, please allow Junior to ask. At this time, Sun Shu opened his mouth and said, The matter Martial Uncle asked. It seems that Junior has already answered that day, right? Junior and Xiao Hua were together. What Junior saw is what Xiao Hua saw. Junior doesn't know who the cultivator who killed senior apprentice brother Jinjie was, and Xiao Hua naturally doesn't know either. You seem to have nothing to ask, right? Junior apprentice sister Sun, when seniors are talking, it seems that there's no reason for juniors like us to interrupt. Zhen Weisheng sneered and said, Besides, you're not Xiao Hua. How do you know that he doesn't know that cultivator? Ha! Senior apprentice brother Zhen is wrong. Sun Shu laughed and said, In front of facts, regardless of whether it's seniors or juniors, they're all the same. No one could say that white is black. Moreover, although I'm not Xiao Hua, I was with Xiao Hua in the netherworld. I clearly know all of his actions and deeds. I can guarantee with my life that Xiao Hua absolutely doesn't know that cultivator. To guarantee with your life, you're quite generous. Zhen Weisheng sneered. That's right. Xiao Hua's conduct is magnanimous. Even I admire him. Since I's disciple can guarantee it, I can also guarantee it. Sun Ming said with a smile. Shui, who was standing by the side, had a worried expression on her face. Unfortunately, her cultivation was too low and she couldn't interrupt. She could only stick her gaze on Xiao Hua and place her love in Xiao Hua's heart. Sun Ming, are you going to oppose me today? Jinjie finally couldn't help but stare at Sun Ming and ask. Seeing Jinjie standing in front of her and lowering his head to show off his might, Sun Ming's expression also turned cold. She stood up and said, What? Jinjie, I'm going to go against you? What do you do to I? Audacious. Jinjie's beard and eyebrows fluttered, magic power surging around his body. Sun Ming's body also faintly flashed with brilliance. Clearly, she was also preparing. Two seniors. Seeing this, Helplessness hurriedly stood up, bowed, and said, Let's talk things over. He was actually happy that Sun Ming came, but 2 golden core cultivators fighting, he couldn't stand it. Helplessness. Is Martial Nephew here? While swords were drawn, another voice rang out in the cave. Why are the 2 of you here? Who is it? Helplessness was completely speechless. The strength in his body seemed to have suddenly completely disappeared. The situation in this 10,000 Thunder Valley had long been out of his control. Zhen Mo, Zhuo Minghui, and the others were naturally astonished. They sighed. Their moods had never been as strange as today. A small foundation establishment cultivator celebration. Actually, 3 golden core cultivators came. As for Sun Ming and Zhen Jie, their expressions also changed. They said in unison, "Gan Tian, senior brother Qian?" The two of them cried out. They didn't dare to be negligent. Ignoring the conflict between the two of them, they hurriedly walked out of the cave and went outside to welcome them. When Helplessness heard that it was actually a Heavenly Thunder Palace disciple, he was even more shocked. This Gantian was a late-stage Golden Core cultivator of the Heavenly Thunder Palace. In the past, Helplessness had only heard of him. Even if he had met him a few times, he simply wouldn't pay attention to him. He didn't expect that he would actually come today. Could it be still for Xiaohua? However, Xiaohua's face was also filled with confusion. He was currently looking at Sun Shu. Sun Shu slightly frowned, seemingly deep in thought. This time, even Zhen Weisheng and the others went out to welcome them. Xiaohua naturally didn't need to stay in the cave and stood behind everyone. After waiting for half the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, they saw 2 cultivators flying over from the distance. Their appearances were actually extremely similar. The person in front was around 50 years old. He was wearing a green Taoist robe. His hair and beard were all white, but his face only had slight wrinkles. His facial features, the arrogance in his eyes, and the way he moved was exactly the same as that Qian Diheng behind him, that senior brother Qian who had followed Xiaohua all the way to the netherworld to gain experience. In an instant, Xiaohua understood why this Qian Diheng was so favored in the Heavenly Thunder Palace. Why was he able to obtain a high-level protective magic treasure as early as the beginning of the 12th layer of the Qi refining stage? Chapter 1823. Greetings, senior brother Gantian. Zhen Jie and Sun Shu bowed respectfully, and Gantian's arrogance was ingrained in his bones. He waved his hand slightly and helped the two up. When Helplessness and Zhen Mo bowed and greeted him, Gantian actually took a step forward and used his hand to block Helplessness's arm. He squeezed out a smile. No need to be so polite. I heard that Junior Nephew's disciple reached Foundation establishment, so I came over to take a look. I have long heard that Junior Nephew Helplessness has been guarding 10,000 Thunder Valley. You have worked hard and contributed a lot. Today I am here. As expected, a good teacher produces a good disciple. Helplessness panicked. Just like when he went to see the sect leader with Xiaohua, he stuttered, Junior. Junior doesn't dare to accept such praise. 10,000 Thunder Valley used to be the core of our lightning controlling sect. Now, its use is slowly disappearing. Kiki, that's why I value your steadiness. Gantian smiled. If it was a proper and important matter, the sect leader would pay attention to it every day. Anyone would feel that it was worth it. As for 10,000 Thunder Valley, it has already faded from the sect leader's attention. You have been guarding it for decades and centuries. This is the true backbone of our lightning controlling sect. Thank you, Senior Master, for your praise. Helplessness was about to cry. Senior Brother Gantian, let's talk inside the cave. Zhen Jie said softly. Gantian nodded his head and entered first, not bothering with anyone else. Qian Diheng appeared in midair of 10,000 Thunder Valley. He had always been obedient. However, when Gantian was swarmed in and Zhen Weisheng and the others raised their hands to invite him in, he showed his true nature. Qian Diheng waved his hand and said impatiently, You all go in first. I just reached Foundation establishment and can't walk in front. Zhen Weisheng didn't dare to show any unhappiness on his face, laughing softly. Junior brother Qian really knows etiquette. Then, he also entered the cave. When Shui Hongshun smiled and wanted to talk to Qian Diheng cupped his hands and turned his head towards Sun Shu. Senior sister Sun, I didn't expect you to have reached Foundation establishment. When did you reach Foundation establishment? Perhaps I can change my way of addressing you as junior sister's son. Sun Shu pulled Shue Shue forward and told them the time with a smile. Qian Di Heng was dumbfounded. He said with a dispirited face, "Damn it. Are you kidding me? The time is the same. I still want to call you senior sister." Haha, cultivate well. Sun Shu covered his mouth and laughed. When it's time to condense your Dan, you still have hope. Hee, it's nothing. Qian Diheng winked and waved his hand. Junior martial brother Xiao, come here quickly. Accompany your senior martial brother into the cave. Damn it. Even if I can't be Sun Shu's senior brother, I'm more than qualified to be your senior brother. Upon seeing Qian Diheng smile, Xiao Hua faintly shook his head. He took a few steps forward and bowed. Junior Xiao Hua greets Martial Uncle Qian. Junior is currently an aura refining cultivator, so I don't dare to call any foundation building seniors senior martial brother or junior martial brother. Qian Diheng's face stiffened. After all, when Xiao Hua sent him a message earlier, he still called him senior martial brother Qian. Why did he suddenly change now? But when he heard Xiao Hua say, call any foundation building seniors senior martial brother or junior martial brother, he immediately understood. He turned to look at Cui Hongshan with a sinister look on his face. Although Cui Hongshan was a disciple of the Cui family, he still couldn't be compared with Qian Diheng, a direct disciple of a cultivation sect. When he saw that Qian Diheng, who he usually couldn't get close to, was glaring at him, his heart skipped a beat. But Qian Diheng's sinister look only appeared for a moment before it was replaced with a smile. He patted Xiao Hua's shoulder and said, Junior martial brother Xiao, I'm not the kind of person who forgets my roots. Only those beasts who just reached the foundation-building realm don't know how to respect themselves, don't know the immensity of heaven and earth, and don't treat junior martial brother Xiao as a senior martial brother. Didn't I say it already? Even if I reach the great ascension stage, you're still my junior martial brother. Bah! Xiao Hua didn't say anything, but Sun Shu spat and said angrily, Why are you only thinking about reaching the great ascension stage? What if junior martial brother Xiao reaches the great ascension stage before you? TSK. Qian Diheng shamelessly said, I'm older than him. Even if he reaches the great ascension stage, he still has to call me senior martial brother. This shameless. Xiao Hua secretly laughed in his heart, but he also felt a burst of warmth in his heart. Just as Xiao Hua was about to say something, Qian Diheng's expression changed again. He looked like a child who had admitted his mistake and said in a low voice, Junior martial brother Xiao, Sai, don't blame me. Grandfather, Sai, I didn't want to say it, but I can't help it. Qian Diheng's words were said without reason. Cui Hongshan and the others were puzzled, but Xiao Hua immediately understood. At the same time, Sun Shu also smiled bitterly and said, Junior martial brother Xiao, I am also ordinary. Then he looked at Shue Shue as if he wanted to ask for help. Shue Shue didn't say a word. Her eyes never left Xiao Hua. At this time, her bright eyes were slightly swaying, like rippling waves of a spring. Xiao Hua could see Shue Shue's infatuation with a glance. It's okay. Xiao Hua put his hand on Qian Diheng's shoulder and said with a smile, You're my senior martial brother. It's a pity that my grandfather is not your grandfather. Qian Diheng was very distressed and tapped his forehead with his finger. I've already delayed for so long. I understand. Xiao Hua smiled at Sun Shu, and the smile in his eyes made Sun Shu's heart feel at ease. Senior martial brother Qian, why aren't you going in? Xiao Hua loosened his arm. Yes, I'll go in now. After Qian Diheng finished explaining the matter, he obediently led the way into the Immortal's Cave, followed by Sun Shu. Shue Shue also went in with Xiao Hua, leaving them behind. Cui Hongshan and the rest of the gang of scoundrels looked at each other in dismay, their eyes revealing a trace of puzzlement and also a lot of regret. They never thought that the Heavenly Thunder Palace's dandy would actually have such a good relationship with the shocking Thunder Palace's loose cultivators. Zhen Qikue gritted his teeth. After all, when Qian Diheng appeared, he immediately stole the limelight. Moreover, Qian Diheng didn't even look at him. However, Even if he hated, what could he do? He could only follow Chui Hongshan into the cave and obediently stand at the two sides. At this time, there was a late-stage Jindan cultivator sitting in the cave. Who among the disciples dared to sit down? At the head of the cave, Gantian sat in the middle. Sun Ming and Zhang Jie accompanied him on the two sides. Helplessness and Zhuo Minghui sat on the chair on the right. Zhan Mo and the others carefully sat on the left. Junior Marshal Brother Zhun, why did you come to 10,000 Thunder Valley today? Gantian and the others had finished their greetings and asked with a smile. Chapter 1824. Zhang Jie was thinking about it and couldn't understand why Gantian came. Naturally, he didn't dare to say much. Just as he was about to reply, he saw Xiaohua walk in with Qian Diheng and Sun Ming. He frowned and looked at Zhun Weisheng, giving him a signal. He then smiled. 10,000 Thunder Valley is the most important place in our Zhenlei Palace. I heard that junior nephew's disciple reached foundation building, so I came over to congratulate you. Also, I wanted to ask Xiaohua a few things. Did junior brother ask someone to ask Kang? Gantian asked directly. Zhang Jie felt a little awkward, but he didn't dare to not reply. He smiled. I had a disciple fall, so I can't not ask. Is it because of the nether lotus? Gantian said impolitely. No, that thing is useful for foundation building, but what can it do for golden core cultivators? Zhang Jie didn't dare to say anything else and could only argue. Have you finished asking? I also have things to ask Xiaohua. Gantian's overbearingness was obvious. I have finished. Zhang Jie looked at Sun Ming opposite him and said softly. Oh, what did you ask? What did Xiaohua reply? Gantian asked him politely. Zhang Jie smiled, like what Diheng said. Due to an oath, Xiaohua couldn't say much. Moreover, he didn't know. Seeing that, I didn't ask anymore. Damn, this fellow. Xiaohua was speechless. Zhang Jie didn't ask, but Zhen Weisheng did. However, Xiaohua couldn't say, and others wouldn't either. And not bad. Zhen Jie nodded. As seniors, we should understand that. Since the disciples have made a heart oath, they should say many things that they should, and don't say anything that they shouldn't. Yes, I understand. Zhang Jie didn't have the arrogance from before and said with a smile. Are you done with your matter? Yes, I don't have anything else. Zhang Jie's fierce face became unusually friendly in front of Gantian. What about you? Gantian turned his head and said to Sun Ming straightforwardly. Sun Ming smiled bitterly. I probably came for the same reason as senior brother Gantian. Gantian A.O. glanced at Sun Ming and said mercilessly, When I saw you here, I knew. Have you asked Xiaohua? Not yet, So you're saying that this old man will be one step ahead of you? Yes, senior brother Qian is indeed one step ahead of I. Senior brother Qian, please. Sun Ming's mouth was bitter, but she didn't dare to say anything. Gantian and Sun Ming's words were really weird. No matter if it was Zhang Jie or helplessness, they couldn't understand what was going on. However, they understood that since even Gantian, who was at the late Golden Core stage, had come, what they wanted to ask wouldn't be a small matter. All right. Gantian looked around and said coldly, Since everyone is here, I won't chase you away on behalf of junior nephew Wuji. Apart from Xiaohua and Heng, all of you swear a hard oath. You can't tell anyone about what happened today. Otherwise, even if a hard oath is useless, this old man will still take his life. Helplessness was stunned. This was the second time he was forced to swear a hard oath today. However, looking at Jinjia's dark and gloomy face, he felt refreshed for no reason. His mood was 100 times better than the first time. Cough, cough. Helplessness stood up and bowed. Junior Master Qian, Junior is the master. Junior will swear a hard oath. Left and right, one hard oath was a hard oath, two was the same. Helplessness didn't have any burden and swore it right away. Zhuo Minghui saw her husband stand up and also swore a hard oath. After waiting for everyone to swear, Sun Ming sighed and also opened her mouth. Jinjia's face was already torn to shreds. However, he didn't dare to not swear a hard oath. He only hesitated slightly. Gantian scoffed coldly, and the entire cave seemed to become colder. Yes, Senior Brother Qian, don't be anxious. Jinjie hurriedly opened his mouth and swore a hard oath. However, when the hard oath was swore, his heart relaxed for no reason. Since everyone here swore a hard oath, who would say that he was forced to swear a hard oath? And Gantian was very satisfied. He looked at Xiao Hua with a gentle gaze and said, Xiao Hua, come over for a moment. Yes, Junior greets Senior Master Qian. Xiao Hua hurriedly went up and bowed. Very good. Xiao Hua, I heard Hunger talk about you. You took care of Hunger a lot during the trial. I will remember it in my heart. Although Gantian was thankful, his tone was calm. I think you already know why I came here today, right? Junior knows. Xiao Hua's face revealed a bitter smile. Then, Gantian's voice actually trembled as he hesitated. That thing, do you still have it? Even if it's half a drop, it's fine. Xiao Hua saw that Gantian's gaze seemed to be able to pierce through him. He knew that if it wasn't for Qian Di Hung, or if Gantian still had a bit of morality, he would have already snatched it. Thus, he reached out and touched his nose, smiling bitterly. Okay, Senior Master knows. If Junior doesn't have it, would Junior still be a Qi Refinement Realm cultivator? Good. Gantian let out a long breath. His expression relaxed a lot. Where is it? It's in Junior's storage bag. Xiao Hua raised his brows and said. Hearing this, Zhang Jie's eyes flashed as he glanced at Zhen Weisheng. Zhen Weisheng also bit his lips. He didn't expect that the storage bag that passed through his hands would have a treasure that even a late Golden Core Realm cultivator would covet. Take out. Gantian smiled. Junior will give it to Senior right away. Xiao Hua said, Junior originally wanted to give this thing to Master, but because there's only one drop, Junior is in a difficult position. Chapter 1825. Gantian coldly laughed as he rejected. However, after he finished speaking, he seemed to have thought of something. He glanced at Qian Di Hung and said, I promised Hung that I wouldn't make things difficult for you. Your request isn't too much. After all, you also need this item. Forget it. I will agree to your request. Thank you, Senior Ancestor Qian. Xiao Hua bowed happily. I won't take it for free. You can ask Hung, for the benefits I'll give you later. Gantian continued. Junior understands. Xiao Hua clapped his hands and took out a jade box. It was obvious that this jade box was the same as the ones in his storage bag. The moment the jade box was taken out, Gantian stretched out his hand and a huge force appeared. Xiao Hua didn't have any strength to resist as the jade box flew into Gantian's hands. Ha ha ha! Gantian swept it with his spiritual sense and immediately laughed. He waved his hand and a restriction blocked him. No one knew what he was doing within the restriction. After a while, Gantian removed the restriction and took the jade box in his hands. With a wave of his hand, the jade box flew into Xiao Hua's hands. Xiao Hua, who took the jade box, turned his head and bowed towards Sun Ming, Senior Ancestor's son. I think you came for this, right? Sun Ming was slightly taken aback. She didn't hide it and nodded. Indeed, I have such intentions. Sigh. Xiao Hua sighed in his heart. Qian Di Hung said it clearly, and he had delayed for a long time before he had no choice but to tell Gantian. Sun Shu was probably the same, which was why Gantian and Sun Ming gathered in 10,000 Thunder Valley. However, this was also good. Xiao Hua passed the jade box to Sun Ming and smiled bitterly. Junior didn't dare to use it because I was afraid that my talent wasn't good enough. If I still couldn't reach Foundation Establishment, my last hope would be destroyed. Since Senior came today, Junior knows that I have no fate with this item. I'll give it to Senior Ancestor's son. Xiao Hua, Shui, who was originally very calm, couldn't help but cry out. She couldn't believe that Xiao Hua didn't use it. Although Sun Ming's brows slightly furrowed, her hand still firmly caught the jade box. Moreover, she was still worried and opened the jade box to take a look. Only then did she put it into her storage bag and said, Xiao Hua, This poor Taoist has received your favor. Ai's gift is also with Shue Shue. I'll get her to give it to you later. Thank you, Grandmaster. As long as Grandmaster treats Shue Shue well, Junior will be perfectly satisfied. Xiaohua said very calmly. Puffed. Sun Ming laughed. Ai's own disciple. How can I not treat him well? Your words will make others think too much. If it were any other day, Shue Shue would definitely be flushed with embarrassment. But at this moment, she was looking at Xiaohua with worry. After all, Zhongyao milk was a shortcut to the foundation establishment stage, and it was gone just like that. Xiaohua smiled, following which he took off his storage bag and placed it in front of Gantian, senior ancestor Qian. Please take a look. I don't have anything else. I don't want others to make things difficult for me. All right. Gantian took it and opened the storage bag. After checking for a moment, he nodded. I know what you mean. Then, he turned around and looked at everyone, saying coldly, this matter ends here. Not to mention the oath you all made before, if any disciple makes things difficult for Xiaohua because of this, then they're making things difficult for me. Zhan Jie and the others looked at one another. Gantian had been so mysterious for such a long time that he didn't know what to say. However, one thing he was sure of was that this thing was related to the foundation establishment stage and the pregnancy of a baby. Something that even Sun Ming could use. He could use it too. However, Xiaohua's actions were obviously telling him that he only had the last drop. There was nothing else. Since Gantian was so happy and took over this matter, Gantian's cultivation would probably improve again. After the late Golden Core stage was the nascent Soul stage. Although Zhan Jie was domineering, he was also an extremely smart person. He wouldn't make any unnecessary sacrifices for something that he didn't have anymore. So he closed his eyes and his heart. Xiaohua took the storage bag that Gantian threw over and bowed once more. Thank you, senior ancestor Qian, for helping me. And I hope that you will train hard. In the future, when you reach the foundation establishment stage, I will also congratulate you. Gantian was in a good mood as he waved his hand and smiled. It was obvious that he was preparing to leave. However, at that moment, a timid voice sounded out, Senior Ancestor Qian, I want to spar with Senior Brother Xiao. Is there a problem? Gantian, who was about to stand up, paused. He looked at the last disciple standing on the right and asked, Whose disciple are you? I am a disciple of Thunder Palace's Yanlei Ridge. My master is Zhen Weisheng. It was Yen Xiefeng who spoke. This is the disciple of Ai's fourth disciple. Zhen Jie smiled apologetically. This child participated in the Feather Immortal Gathering last year and actually got second place. He really helped my thunder-controlling sect. Moreover, he's a thoughtful kid. When he heard that Xiaohua got first place in the Feather Immortal Gathering, he had the idea of sparring with him. Today, he insisted that I bring him over to get to know Xiaohua. I thought that this was a good chance to spar with someone from the same sect, so I agreed. I didn't think that Senior Brother would help Xiaohua and scare him. Only then did he gather his courage to ask for an idea, right? Damn, what does this have to do with me? Gantian waved his sleeves. His tone was the same as Qian Diheng's. I just don't want to make things difficult for Xiaohua. I didn't say anything else. If you all want to spar, then spar. The moment Gantian said this, the entire cave became lively. The disciple who was insulted by Xiaohua wanted to show off in front of Gantian. He smiled. Senior Brother Xiao is a genius and doesn't want to spar with someone from the same sect. If you want to spar, you can only go to the Thunderfield. Thunderfield? What do you little kids know? You keep talking about Thunderfield. Zhen Jie smiled. Junior doesn't dare. Xiaohua hurriedly bowed and said, This junior is just speaking from the bottom of his heart. Since many disciples wanted to invite my myriad Thunder Valley's disciples to the Thunder Arena, then this junior might as well follow their wishes. Don't engage in some superficial exchange of pointers. This junior will directly accompany them to the Thunder Arena. Ha ha ha. Damn, you really have guts. Gantian obviously understood the situation of 10,000 Thunder Valley before coming and also knew about Xiangyang. At this moment when he heard what Xiaohua said, he rubbed his palms and sat down with interest. This. Yin Xiefeng obviously didn't expect that they would directly go to the Thunder Field. He looked towards Zhen Weisheng. However, how would Zhen Weisheng dare to do anything in front of Gantian? He acted like he didn't hear anything. Little kid, what's wrong? You don't dare to go to the Thunder Field? Gantian smiled as he looked at Yin Xiefeng. Junior naturally dares. Yin Xiefeng raised his chest and said, "Good boy, things are getting out of hand." Xiaohua thought without any evil intentions, "I have only entered the lightning controlling sect for a few years, and I have already taken the lives of several lightning controlling sect disciples. It seems like it isn't any less than killing disciples of other sects, right? This Yin Xiefeng, why doesn't he know if he is dead or alive?" Chapter 1826. Actually, if it was a normal day, Xiao Hua could wave his hand and deny it, treating it as a joke. He was just mocking that fellow, but he didn't expect him to pick up the bait. Now, it made things difficult for him. What a joke! Who would have the patience to fight with an energy training cultivator to kill a foundation establishment late-stage cultivator? Xiao Hua wasn't even interested in a foundation establishment initial stage cultivator. However, Gantian late golden core stage cultivator was present, so Xiao Hua couldn't go back on his words. Hearing Yin Xiefeng agree, Xiao Hua could only smile bitterly. Great, Gantian smiled. When I was young, I was also this impulsive. Besides, good to be young. Looking at the situation, Qian Diheng's unafraid attitude came from Gantian. However, Yin Xiefeng saw that Gantian was happy, so he gathered his courage and said, "Since it's a competition, then Junior also has a condition? Tell me, let me hear it." Seeing such an interesting matter, Gantian was interested and asked, "I heard that senior brother Xiao obtained a divine item from the Feather Immortal Gathering. Junior was thinking, can I use that item as a wager? If Junior is lucky enough to win, can senior brother Xiao part with it?" Yin Xiefeng seemed to have thought about this countless times, saying it without hesitation. Even Zhen Weisheng was stunned. Interesting. Gantian seemed to have heard of the Great Wisdom Sword, turning his head and asking, "Xiao Hua, I heard that the item is extremely heavy. Why didn't I see it in the storage bag?" Xiao Hua looked at the fanaticism in Yin Xiefeng's eyes and laughed coldly in his heart. A peak energy training cultivator actually dared to think about the Great Wisdom Sword. He was tired of living. "All right, I'll let Senior Master Qian know. That thing is too heavy and useless, so I threw it in the East Ridge Herb Garden." Xiao Hua smiled. "However, that item is an item from the heavens. Someone wants me to use it as a wager, then shouldn't that person also take out something similar? Junior has a magical item that I obtained from the Feather Immortal Gathering, and I'm willing to use it as a wager." Yin Xiefeng clapped his hands and took out a rectangular magical item that shone with a faint light. With a sound, Qian Diheng burst out laughing. With a face full of disdain and contempt, he said, "Martial nephew, Yin really knows how to joke. He actually used a magic tool to make a bet with junior martial brother Xiao. How could that thing be as valuable as an extraterrestrial divine object? Back then, even the elders of the Tai Ching sect were full of praise for the otherworldly divine item." This, Yin Xiefeng was at a loss for words. He'd only heard his senior brothers mention Xiao Hua's Great Wisdom Sword, yet he truly didn't have any impression of what it looked like or what it could be used for. However, according to his thoughts, the magic tool he obtained from the Feather Immortal Gathering should be able to compare with the Great Wisdom Sword, right? If Swallow Thunder Ridge doesn't have anything good, why don't you let me take one and give it to Martial Nephew Yin? Qian Diheng was overjoyed and continued to tease. "Hung Gantian scolded. "How can you say that about Swallow Thunder Ridge? That's where Thunderclap Palace refines their weapons." Although he was scolding, his tone was filled with doting love, and he didn't try to hide it at all. Furthermore, he turned his head and said to Zhen Jia, "Er's words are rough but logical. Junior martial brother Zhen, for something that even the elders of the Tai Ching sect said was good. If your Swallow Thunder Ridge doesn't take out anything, they won't be convinced." This tone It was standard to stir things up, standard to not be afraid of things getting out of hand. This, Zhen Jie hesitated. It was Zhen Weixing's idea to have Yin Xiefeng test Xiao Hua, and he would have approved of it. After all, Swallow Thunder Ridge's disciples had disappeared one after another because of Xiao Hua. Even if Xiao Hua was an aura-refining disciple, they still had to check his actual strength. However, the situation had already gotten out of his control, and it made him scratch his head. You have to take out a magic tool, right? Even if it's a low-grade one. Gantian suggested. There's no need for any magic tool. Xiao Hua hurriedly said, Junior already has a hard time using the cloud-suppressing seal. Why don't we change to something else? Hearing this, Zhen Jie's anger rose. He had never met a cultivator who didn't like having too many magic tools. He stared at Xiao Hua and laughed coldly. You haven't even reached foundation establishment, and you already know how to be picky. I don't dare. Xiao Hua lowered his brow and didn't retort. He knew that Gantian would definitely side with him. Not for other reasons, but because the more fun things were, the more Gantian would support him. That's true. Gantian smiled. Xiao Hua got a magic tool last time in the Feather Celestial Gathering. So what's the point of giving him another one? He can't use it. Then I will take. Zhen Jie's face turned green from being mocked. He slapped his storage bag and wanted to take out something, but Zhen Weixing stepped up and smiled. Master, did you forget? Last time you went out and got something good from the Xianin illusionary realm and placed it with me. Isn't this thing the same value as the item from beyond the heavens? As he spoke, he took out a palm-sized jade pendant from his storage pouch and handed it over. Isn't this for you to comprehend? What did you see? Zhen Jie was stunned and then scolded. How can you take this thing out? Seeing his master continue the conversation, Zhen Weixing panicked. Disciple is stupid. This thing is an ancient fire-controlling technique. With disciple's talent, it is hard to comprehend. Zhen Jie took the jade amulet and scanned it with his divine sense. A smile appeared on his face as he said to Xiao Hua, This is an ancient divine artifact. It is a perfect match for your divine artifact. If you don't agree, this old man has nothing else to take out. Xiao Hua saw the two of them acting and knew that there was something fishy about this thing. He immediately waved his hand. Then forget it. Senior Master Zhen, I was joking about going to the lightning field. It's fine if I don't go. When Zhen Jie heard that, he smiled. Why do I listen to what you say? You said you wanted something of similar value. So I found something of similar value. If you don't want to go to the lightning field, then I won't let my disciple go there. Although Senior Brother Qian is here, I want you to make things clear. Damn it. Xiao Hua was about to jump up and down. Who knows what is written on the jade? Do you think it is ancient just because you say so? What use do I have for an ancient thing? However, the ancient god item was compatible with his item from beyond the heavens. Anyone who heard it would think that it was of similar value. Let me take a look. Gantian stretched out his hand. Senior Brother Qian, please take a look and see if it is an ancient fire-controlling technique. Although it wasn't suitable to show it to Gantian now, Gantian wanted to see it. Zhen Jie didn't dare to go against him and passed it over. As expected, when Gantian scanned with his spiritual sense, he frowned. However, he smiled and sighed. Junior Brother Zhen is right. This is an ancient god item. Xiao Hua, you can't go back on your words. That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.